What's up, guys, and welcome to a brand new episode of the NeoVintage podcast. I'm Jabrel, and I am with
Steve. Hope everyone's doing well.
And for you guys who have never seen the show before, we're just two guys that like to talk over the biggest stories in gaming, and we always like to start with what we've been playing. So, Steve, what have you been playing?
So, big shocker here. Obviously, I still have my stuff on the back burner. I'm right at the end of Avengers, because I'm getting ready for the spoiler cast that you and I are going to do. That game's just taking forever because it's not jiving with me. Tony Hawk still, obviously, every once in a while, but obviously it's Mario 3D All Stars.
Yes.
That's all I've been playing. I did get mine a day late, thanks to Amazon, but they did refund me $10, so that's fine. Now, what can I say about these games that hasn't been said already? Obviously, I jumped in order. I went to 64, played like 2 hours. Went into Sunshine, knocked out the tutorial because that takes forever. Went into Galaxy, was really blown away by Galaxy, and I know you were as well, because that game just looks like a Switch game. It's just so beautiful, and I'm okay with the way they did, how they took most of the motion controls away. It's still in there a little bit, but these games are just true masterpieces. Sunshine, obviously, I have a love-hate relationship with, but I'm really liking it for some reason. That's the one I've played the most, which is super surprising to me, because I'm a big 64, and I've always been interested in the Galaxies. Really surprised that I'm really just jiving and just really feeling Sunshine right now. I'm getting a lot of the shine sprites and stuff like that. So I'm enjoying my time with it. I do have some criticisms. The fact that this is, and I think you said this on the news yesterday, that this is minimum effort put into these games. And it really shines through with like 64, where nothing was really, obviously the HUD and stuff was polished, but everything else is just there. And the soundtracks are in there, but we have no behind the scene artwork, no early on, mechanics, and the game's still playing in 4:3. And I know there's like technical issues and stuff with that, but it's just like they really didn't put too much effort. And obviously when the data broke, and these people who like to dissect games like crazy, these are just emulators. So now it's good because these emulators now exist. It's weird that sometimes the games just play a little janky, and then I heard that day one patch that they have kind of fixed some of these things, because specifically 64 is giving me issues when I'm playing on like handheld with Joy-Cons. When I'm playing with the Pro Control, it feels great. I don't know if it's just me and the Joy-Cons just don't work well with each other, that I cannot play 64 handheld. I just can't control them well. But it's great to have these three games, to be able to play them without having to hook up a retro system or emulating and all these other things. It's really dumb, and I still don't understand the Mario Galaxy 2 situation, but I'm loving it. It's probably the game I'm playing throughout the week, as soon as I finish Avengers today. So it's a great collection. I'm excited to have it. So what have you been playing, which I know is kind of similar?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. Pretty much everything else I put on the back burner, like Modern Warfare 2, I played a good amount of. I'm kind of done with that. So I just moved on to Mario pretty much to focus on. I've tried out every single one of them, obviously. I played maybe an hour of 64. I played about an hour of Sunshine. And the one that I really was most apprehensive and fascinated by was Galaxy, because, again, that's the one with the furthest control overhaul there, them going from motion controls to that. So I didn't know how this was going to work. I know they had a port of this game on NVIDIA Shield about a year or two ago. So I knew there was some version of the game out there made by the Nintendo that didn't require motion controls. I knew that existed. And playing this game, I would say this is, first off, the one game that I'm actually playing through. Like, I'm pretty deep into it now. I'm on the second Galaxy towards the end of it, so I'm much deeper into the game right now, and I'm having a great time with it. I'm really loving what they did. I didn't mind the touch integration pretty much, so I'm like, hey, if this allows you guys to start porting Wii games to Switch, I'm all for it. I'm liking what you guys are doing here. Mm-hmm. It looks beautiful. It's really fun. The level design's amazing, and it's definitely given me an appreciation putting all three of these games together, how much I love all these games, but how much like some of them are kind of on a different level. And I grew up with Sunshine, and it was the one that I love the most, and it's definitely one of the ones that I probably have the most nostalgia and fun for, just because I immediately just am brought back to my childhood when I play Sunshine in a different way, and a little bit of 64 too, but I experienced that a little bit later than everybody else. So like Sunshine's the one for me, but playing Galaxy right now, it's like I kind of have to like reckon with myself, where I'm like, Yeah, Galaxy's probably a better game. Like, even though I have a lot more love for Sunshine, like, it's kind of on like a different level of just design and stuff like that. And again, as much as I love Sunshine, there is like clunky things about it, especially that camera when it's like very unique to Sunshine. Like when you're jumping in the walls and you're chasing what is his name, the evil Mario.
Yeah, Bowser Jr.
Yeah. When you're
well, spoilers, I guess.
How dare you? How dare you? But when you're chasing him and he jumps off the wall, if you try to do the same thing, immediate just camera break. I'm like, oh, jeez. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember this. And I remember as a kid just remembering to move the camera in a certain way so it doesn't clip on you. So when you're platforming or something like that, you're not suddenly looking at a building when Mario's on the other side of that. But I definitely don't have my muscle memory like I used to, so I was constantly bumping into that. And it did take me a little bit of extra time to get used to controlling the spout and everything. So that one is probably the one that had the biggest learning curve for me, even though that's the one I'm the most familiar with, which is so weird. But so far, yeah, I'm really enjoying this collection. The only thing I guess I reckon with is people who ask, like, is this worth a full $60 though? And it's like, for me, it is, because I love these games. These are 3 of the best games of all time in my opinion. But the problem is, like, it's a very minimum effort collection, especially when you contrast it with some of the stuff that happened with like Konami's collections with Castlevania and stuff like that. I mean, those, and even like the Mega Man Legacy collection, we've seen some really, really awesome collections lately. And this one's like, even down to the UI, like very basic, minimalistic type of collection. And yeah, I mean, they're kind of just emulated things as is. There's no accoutrements to it. Some of these older collections have like scan lines and different filters you put it. There's no filters. You can play around with it. You can't change the controls or anything like that. So you can tell this is something they threw together really, really fast. And on top of that, the fact that it's like a timed thing, it's all kind of strange that I feel like there are some not super customer friendly aspects to this compilation, but generally speaking, I say I'm having a great time with it, and I'm definitely gonna be playing this pretty much until Mafia comes out in I think like a week or so. So this is my game of the week for sure.
Yeah, and I think for most people it is, because even though it seemed like there was gonna be a strain on this game is everywhere. I obviously don't go to stores much anymore, but I did have to stop into GameStop this weekend, and I was curious. I was like, how many 3D All-Stars do you guys have? They had like 27 unreserved copies. And obviously online I see people tweeting all the time that Walmart has tons of them. So you'll be able to get the game. And Walmart, I think, is the only one. I believe Amazon as well is selling the game for $50, which it's not the biggest deal, but it does save a little bit. So it kind of softens the blow. But yeah, comparing this to other collections we get and other even remasters, and I know they're not on the same level, but if you think the Crash, Spiral remasters, like those are remasters, like complete remakes, and those games came out for $40. Here's 3. I know we know how Nintendo is with their IPs and stuff, but they could have polished it a little bit. Luigi was always deleted from Mario 64. That's even something from the 64 days. It probably wouldn't have been too much work to get him in there, at least as a palette swap for Mario to at least add something to it. Obviously I'm not expecting, Mario 64 DS status, but at least could have polished up with something, and that would have been a little bit better. But it's there, and I don't think you're going to have an issue getting it. You could always get it digital. So people who are worried about it, I don't know, maybe save up your Switch coins on the market, and then you can get it at a better, at a better price for yourself.
Yeah, the only thing, again, we want to mention is there is that March cutoff, and we don't know what they're going to be doing at that point. There's speculation that, who knows, maybe they'll be introducing some kind of like virtual console at that point, and these games will be for sale individually, so then they won't exist as a collection anymore. But if you have any interest in this, I would highly recommend you pick this up, and you don't just pick it up, you pick it up physically if you can. There's plenty out there. Once they stop producing these in March, the prices are going to shoot up. So if you guys are listening to this, definitely try to get a copy if you can, if you have a little extra money and stuff like that, because I think it'd be a good thing to have in your arsenal.
For sure, especially the physicals. Which,
Absolutely.
Also note, I can't believe they didn't even pack in some stickers or something in the physical collection.
Nah, you got a reversible cover. You got a little inside there. That's it.
You don't get a pamphlet, no sticker, nothing. I was like, I'm not expecting pins or whatever, that weird stuff, or But I was like, I don't know, at least a sticker would have been
Hashtag bring booklets back. Bring back something. You can't just give me an empty case and a little cartridge. This is crazy.
It's a little ridiculous because I think back to when they released Mario Maker, and Mario Maker came with this nice little booklet, which even though I don't have the physical game anymore, I do have the booklet, which shows a lot of like the blueprints and artwork, and it's like something simple. It didn't have to be a thick book, but come on, something.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and I don't know. Hopefully Nintendo sweetens the pot later with some sort of update. Who knows? So getting into the stories, we have some big ones this week, and the first one's not really a joke, but more of a PSA. It's something I was in tears laughing about. So Avengers, let's talk about Avengers again. We're right at the cusp. We're about to do our spoiler cast. So Avengers has been riddled with technical and performance issues since its launch September 4th. Square Enix has now released a patch, which is the version 1.3.0 patch. And if you guys want to laugh, whoever's listening to this, and it's not laughing at people whose hard work, this is ridiculous. This patch note, usually patch notes are like 3 or 4 bullet points, and it's like general fixes or dialogue fixes. And I'll read their opening statement, and then we'll jump into some of the weirder ones. So this is from Square Enix, their blog post. So patch version 1.3.0 is our first major patch since launch and addresses over 1,000 issues.
That's insane.
You've helped surface these past 2 weeks, ranging from several progression stoppers to small graphical fixes. 1,000 fixes. This game, and it's always been known that this game was in development hell. There was a time it was canceled. It was brought back. They obviously needed more time. There's a story here that this game was not ready to come out. Definitely need another delay, but for some reason they could not delay it anymore. So they did in the blog post break it up by section. So pretty much they have the reassemble the main campaign, which is you're reassembling the Avengers, has 15 different bullet points. Most of them is just random missions that will stop your progression, random missions that an elevator won't load or a button won't open up. Simple things like that. That's something I've been suffering right now, especially. I haven't played it since the patch, but this late game, like I'm right at the end, like I have everybody. I'm trying to figure out. I already kind of figured out what's under the ocean, but I'm right at the end, and the game will constantly just stop where it's like, go to this spot, I'll go to that spot. Nothing happens. I have to reload. It almost broke my PS4 the other day. It like relaunched it, and I had to save state it. Weird stuff. So a lot of like weird progressions in there. The multiplayer ones are just obviously matchmaking and stuff like that. The art and animation is, my goodness, another, I think this, if I counted right, this one's like 17 different issues, from fixing like the factions, the wrong people were showing up, fixing an issue with the takedowns and multiplayer animations where they wouldn't sync up right. It's ridiculous. I personally had an issue where every other scene, my Bruce Banner would lose and grow his beard until eventually he lost it, and it is it's ridiculous. Every other scene, again, he would grow and lose his beard. I don't know what his issue was. The UI has been fixed, obviously fixing a lot of things with pop-ins and things like that. So, and again, it's just there's so many, we don't even have time to run through this whole thing. Different things for the artifacts and customization, and all these items wouldn't appear, or there was some where some of the like rarer gear would show up in your inventory, and then the next mission they would be gone, and it would cause this weird glitch. Combat is being fixed. Well, was fixed. Obviously, the blocking, the attacking buttons, and all these things that would not spark. And I've only ever had that a few times where like my takedown wouldn't take people down, or I would go to take down one enemy, and for me, Black Widow would always jump to the other side of the screen and take down some enemy that I didn't even see. Weird camera issues like that. And the combat is the one that has the most issues. I want to say that one had almost like 25 fixes. Less aggressive, in like gangs of enemies, and obviously things like that. The gear challenges and stuff like that has all been fixed, balancing issues and stuff like that. And then there's some platformer specifics, but they're all kind of generally the same. So that's all I'm going to say now for Avengers. I don't know how this game was even greenlit to be released with this many issues, because it is ridiculous. And Square still says we want to fix this game even more. If you find more issues, you can, because you have to sign into your Square account so you can like upload and all these different things. So Jabral, you've beaten this game. Yeah. I don't know how you were able to get through because this game is just doesn't want me to finish it. I'm at the end, and it's been a struggle because most of the time I am enjoying myself, especially when you get the crew together. You can pick the character you want. Besides the chugginess and the slow frame rates, this game is just stopping me from playing it, and I'm hoping these patches fixed it. What do you think of this when I sent you this link, though? Because I thought it was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. It's one of those things. So yeah, I beat the game, and it's one of those things that the moment credits rolled, I took it off and uninstalled it from my PS4 because I have no interest in touching this game again. Again, I had a lot of fun with this, but for a long time I was saying like this game is broken. This game is broken. No, it's not. This patch, if anything, the patch notes made it clear that this game's not broken. It's not finished. Mm-hmm. And that is a huge issue with the modern game thing, and a lot of people take issue with modern games in this way, is the whole release now, finish it later technique. And that's just not right, because a lot of people, myself included, spent $60 on a game that was incomplete. And so the experience I got, like, yeah, it just barely was able to get through the game. Not to mention, I had to reload every other time I played. Mm-hmm. I would get caught up in endless load times, at least 3 or 4 times, endless load times. There's been times where I've booted up the game and the menu froze, like the main menu before I even launched into the game. There's been times where they've been talking in cutscenes and no one was there. Like, it's just insane things that I'm like, come on, guys. And the biggest, most egregious thing that I have a problem with is the fact that there were game-breaking bugs in just the main campaign, and they've released it in that state. And there's no way that made it through QA. You guys knew about that, and you guys released it anyways. And I understand the logistical reality of the fact that you feel that because of the way the calendar is laid out, you need to put it out now. But you can't put out a game with game-breaking bugs and just be like, we'll patch it out later. That's not fair to the people who spend money on that. It's one thing if this was a free-to-play type game and you fix it after the fact and everybody clowns it. It is what it is. But when you're talking about people's hard-earned cash on a product that is just barely running, and you guys are aware of those issues, and they're acting like, oh yeah, we didn't know. It's like, no, you guys know. Because if I, in a simple run through, I'm not a completionist, I'm not running in every single little corridor, just running through the story, a clean run, and I'm bumping into these kind of issues, then you for sure bumped into these type of issues. And this is just nuts, and it definitely gives me pause about like the way that the teams that were associated with this game and the fact that they released it in this format. Otherwise, like, people got to hold Square to task and stuff like that. Like, what the hell was this? Like, for real, Square. Like, I don't get what they were doing over there.
Yeah, again, like you're saying, this is at the point of unacceptable. Where this game, I understand this game is, like I've said, had a like weird development cycle. This game was obviously supposed to be released, and it's almost been confirmed. A lot of people that have left the team have. I've never brought it up in the show because they haven't been like verified yet, but this game was supposed to launch between Infinity War and Endgame, would have capitalized on the time, and everyone's pretty much sure, like, well, yeah, obviously that was, Avengers hype was at the most high, so this game would have done, I don't know how well or not well this game is selling, but it would have done really well then. But imagine the state it would have released back then. Now you're talking, 2 years? Yeah. I want to say Avengers was? Or 3, actually, because if in between the two, or whatever it was. This game is just, I don't know if it's too many hands in the pot. It does feel like 2 games mushed together, and I'll get more into that when we do the full spoiler cast. Obviously, the multiplayer aspect does not work well with the campaign aspect, but like you're saying, the main campaign is what's breaking a lot of things, because the multiplayer is there, but many people aren't playing it. You're telling me just trying to play your main game, and I've gotten to the point where I've taken my PlayStation off the internet to try to knock all this stuff, just to get it off it and not to be bouncing on and off servers. And it still struggles. It still has the crazy amount of clipping. The things where yesterday Cap kept falling through the map, and then he would like have a semi-swim animation, then he would just drop. It was just terrible. It just was terrible. And it's just, I could not believe the game was released in this broken space, and we don't know who to blame yet. Was it the timing, publishing, developers? Who really said this game could not wait anymore and pushed it out in the way it was?
Yeah, and I get that they had like a real tricky situation because yeah, obviously there was massive delays, and if you wanted to push it off anymore, I've seen some people being like, oh, you should have launched with maybe the next gen because the extra power of the systems maybe could have helped it work a little bit, and maybe you could have been a launch title, get more eyes on anything. But then the problem is they run immediately into being there with Miles Morales. Which, if there's any game they want to avoid like the plague, it's Spider-Man, because that is a direct comparison people will make, and you'll look crazy compared to. I mean, we're talking about polish on polish from a Sony first-party game. Square don't want any smoke with Spider-Man, so I get why they were like, no, we can't launch that close to Spider-Man. It's gonna put a death nail in our game and make us look even worse.
Yeah, and it does seem like things fell against them in this aspect because they announced this game so long ago then that they couldn't even be like, well, this game is only next gen now, and then you're crossing so many people on other platforms, and it's sad to see it this way because under a lot of this mess there is a base good game, but there's just so many other problems, and it sucks because we probably will not get a sequel. I'm sure this has probably some sort of sequel bait or after credit scene, but it sucks that I don't think we're gonna see a sequel, at least from these guys. I don't believe so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to do. The thing is, sometimes critical review doesn't always line up with commercial reception and how much they sold. So I need to look at the numbers before, because I feel like, unfortunately, sometimes the commercial realities shape whether they get a sequel or not way more than what the reception was on Rotten Tomatoes. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
we'll see once a little bit time passes and they're finished updating Avengers if they express any interest or willingness to release another title. But I guess we could jump into the next story because this one is a massive story, and I'm gonna break it up into chunks.
Yeah.
So I'm going to drop the new information that we have for it. That'll be a little chunk. We can discuss that. Then we can get into the launch lineup. We can discuss that. Then we can get into the whole pre-order debacle. We can discuss that. And then we can get into the event announcements. So Absolutely. We're going to break this into like 4 mini chunks, because if I drop all this and trying to discuss and go back and forth, it's going to be a nightmare. So let me just start. So since the last episode, a PS5 event happened. We got the release date, price range, and games that were revealed. Also, pre-orders went live. The launch date for the PS5 is officially November 12th for the United States, Japan, Canada, Mexico, Australia, New Zealand, and South Korea. The rest of the world is going to go a week later on the 19th. The digital-only version is going to go for $399, and the regular version is $499. So before we get into the launch lineup, what do you think about the launch date, and what do you think about the pricing? We finally got the pricing.
So pricing, I think this is spot on. And not just me, everyone's pretty much been on board that the system has to be $500. We knew, especially once we got Xbox's price. So for a long time, we've been saying the system's got to be $500. I was always saying the disc click was going to be about $50 cheaper, because that's how much like a disc drive really costs. And there is no difference in power, luckily. So I think it's just even better price, because in 2013, you were paying $400 for the PS4. So essentially, inflation, all that great stuff, well, not great stuff, but all that stuff, 7 years later, you can buy your new system for the same price, which is mind-blowing. So the pricing is spot on. I think it's exactly where it needs to be, and I think it's also where people guessed. The date is, again, lands in the window we were expecting. Obviously, we knew it'd be around, the first week of November, or we thought maybe the third week of November, right before, like, the holidays and stuff. Under no circumstance would have guessed a Thursday, that they would choose a Thursday. Things are usually released in America and other places too, either Tuesday or Friday. Yep. That's just kind of how it's always been. They went and chose a Thursday, November 12th. I don't know why. I don't know if maybe they didn't know Xbox, because Xbox comes out the 10th, if I'm correct.
I believe so, yeah.
So they're the Tuesday before. So these systems, the Xbox One and the PS4 launched weeks apart, or I want to say 2 weeks apart too, or something like that. Where these systems are launching 2 days apart, which is a ridiculous thing. But it lines up with what we were expecting. It lines up with some of those bigger games that we knew were kind of foreshadowing, with like Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed. We knew those games were going to line up with the next gen, and it works out. So with that stuff, I'm completely happy and satisfied with.
Yeah, no, I really like the price range, and it is kind of bugged out, the fact like there's always been the thing that people are like, oh, gaming is so expensive, but when adjusted for inflation, especially, the gaming has been getting cheaper, and the fact that in 2020 we have a console that's launching $200 less than its predecessors 2 generations before, the fact that the PS3 was $600,
yeah,
and the fact that we're getting a console that's infinitely more powerful for $200 less than that is a really incredible thing. And the great thing about that I don't see a ton of people talking about, the fact that is like, if you're not hung up on physical games, which if you're looking at statistically, that's becoming a minority at this point. It's past the 50% threshold on certain publishers for digital to physical players. So we're talking about a growing population, if not the majority at this point. You get to have a full powered next gen experience 4K native at $400, which is actually undercutting Xbox by $100. Now, obviously, Xbox has the Series X at $499, but that's a disc version that goes against PlayStation's $499 version. But again, if you're not hung up on disc, you can get something just as powerful, maybe a little bit of a power differential, for $100 cheaper. So that's a really, really awesome thing that they were able to get it down that much. I would have never guessed that just simply removing the disc drive they would justify like $100 price cut. That's pretty awesome. And so you got the disc based version, right?
I didn't have a choice, but yeah. I do have the disc based version pre-ordered.
Yeah, and I got the digital version, and we'll get into the absolute mayhem that was the pre-orders after the event went live. But yeah, so I'm digital only, I guess, for PlayStation for this generation. I was contemplating, like, I'm going to keep, my eyes open if I could find a disc-based version. But then I thought about it, and I was like, honestly, the amount of PS5 discs that I'm probably going to get is going to be limited, especially the fact that now they have, and they've had this for some time, but the way you could pre-install about a week or two earlier before the game comes out. Yeah. Even with my internet, it's not always the best, but that's more than enough time for me to download the game and be able to play it day one. So that's probably, it works out for me. It's kind of forced me to go all digital, but I'm not necessarily resenting that. If I want physical games, I'll buy Genesis games. You know what I mean? Like, I don't necessarily need physical PS5 games.
Yeah, my plan was to get the digital version, especially when I saw the drastic price difference when I was like $100. And obviously they can eat a little bit of that price because now you have to buy their software through them. You can't buy digital codes for PlayStation. Like you can't go ask for Miles Morales digital code at GameStop anymore. That ended about 4 years ago when I was still at GameStop, where we stopped doing that. You can obviously go get like PSN cards. So you have to get your games through them. So I'm assuming that's why they were able to do such a drastic difference, because it's like, well, we'll make it up on the other end where you have to get your games through us.
Yeah, software sales.
Yeah, you're through the software sales. So my plan was to get that because I was like, well, if anything, I'll go PlayStation full, for their exclusives and their IPs, and for games I want to get platinum trophies for, and then I'll get everything else on PC or Xbox or whatever it may be. It didn't work in my favor, but at least this way we have both consoles, so we can get a nice discussion going on when these consoles release.
Yeah, if anything, me getting this console just makes me regret not going digital sooner, because I'm looking at my shelf of like a ton, like dozens of physical PS4 games that I'm like, well, there goes those. I can't play those.
Well, I mean, luckily you're not one of those. We don't sell our hardware, so
no. I'll be able to hook up my PS4 if I need to.
You could always hook up your PS4 in the worst case.
It's just always brutal sometimes booting up like the last gen console when I'm going to get used to that PS5 speed, and then I'm going to load it up and the UI is going to barely work, and I'm like, oh joy, it's fun to be back here.
Yeah, that's true. And you're on a launch PS4 still, correct?
Yes, I got the shine and everything. So
you got the half a...
the little jet engine. All right, so I guess we could talk about the launch lineup. They revealed it, and so we're going to go game by game. So the first one is Astro's Playroom. That one, they already revealed. It's going to come pre-installed in the console. We have the Demon Souls remake by Bluepoint. Destruction All-Stars, they also showed that off. Spider-Man Miles Morales, obviously by Insomniac. And then Sackboy, A Big Adventure, which is going to be basically a Little Big Planet-inspired platformer that they also showed off. So what do you think about this launch lineup, especially compared to previous generations? Are you happy with it? How many of these games are you even interested in?
All right, so I mean, Astro's Playroom, that's fine. I was always more concerned that they were going to try to sell this game. When they're like, listen, it's going to be pre-installed just the way that Playroom is on PS4s. I'm like, cool, it'll be there to show off, I don't know, how the DualSense really works, all these little things, which is fine. So you can't really get mad at free software. So that'd be weird. Demon Souls, man, that game looks fantastic.
Yeah,
Holy,
it does.
I'm not even a huge, and I know you aren't either, you spoke about this on the news, that, Demon Souls and Dark Souls aren't really our kind of thing. And now Demon Souls I've never played. I did see a little bit. I understand that that's the precursor to what ended up being Dark Souls and all that stuff. There's something about this game that's kind of calling me. I don't know what it is that I'm just like, I'm like interested in it. And I know I'm going to rage. And I know I'm going to freak out. And I know what I'm getting myself into. But I want it. And I don't know what it is. If it's just the aesthetic is really working for me this time. And these games are random for me. I don't really play any Dark Souls, sorry. But I did enjoy Bloodborne like crazy. I don't really like playing the Neo games. But Sekiro was my flavor. I don't know what it is. Demon Souls is just starting to really strike a chord for me. So having that at launch is going to be good because I'm not going to have an overwhelming launch lineup technically. We have, smaller titles, but fewer titles, so I may be able to give the time that I can into Demon Souls. Will I beat it? No, absolutely not. But
we know the answer. Come on,
we both know I'm not going to beat this game.
Me neither.
But I want it. I want to see it, and I want to see it run. Also, I want to support Blue Point to the max and just get more of these crazy, crazy good remakes out of them. Destruction All Stars, I did not know, and I read this, I read our rundown last night. I didn't know that was a launch line because I haven't been able to pre-order that game anywhere.
That, if I'm not mistaken, that's still like Fortnite-looking Twisted Metal game, right?
Yeah, it should have been a Twisted Metal game. Yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't even aware that's a launch lineup because when I went to pre-order places, and unless it went live later, I didn't know. I may get that as long as there's a split screen. That way I can play with someone who's here just to kind of check that out. I doubt I'd probably get into it that much. Also, I got to depend on the pricing because, as we know, the pricing has been revealed to be scaled. So some games will be cheaper and some games will be more.
We got to talk about that.
Yeah. So, and I'm not gonna pay $70 for Destruction.
Hell no.
Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Now we're talking.
And I'm gonna save it later till we talk about what games were revealed. Obviously, gonna get this, and it's probably gonna be my most played PS5 launch game. I'm obviously super excited for this, but I'll save that when we talk about the reveal. And a Sackboy Big Adventure looks cool. I've always been a big fan of Sackboy, and I know you did too. Mm-hmm. And I was always more like, I don't want to make my own games with Sackboy. I kind of want to play a Sackboy game, which is why I kind of liked the Little Big Planet cart, even though it wasn't the best. So this will probably be, I'm worried because this is kind of filling the Knack spot for launch where Knack was there and stuff. Obviously, I think Sackboy Big Adventure will probably be a little bit better. It won't be, it'll be a nice platformer. That's another one where I'm just like, well, it depends what it really reveals itself to be. I'm not too worried about it. I may wait on that. Obviously, there's no point in me getting 7 launch games when I'm not going to play 7 games at once. So I'm excited. You have a nice variety. You have, obviously, this is just more what was revealed at the conference. You have all these other third-party games. Assassin's Creed will be out at this time. All these other games you can be playing at the time. But I think the fact that they have, the hard, gritty game, with Demon Souls, and then you have the Spider-Man, which is gonna sell gangbusters. You have the more kid-friendly between the Astro and the Little Big Planet. So I think they really hit a spot of everything. And you have Destruction All-Stars for more of that multiplayer mix.
Online, yeah.
Yeah, so the real thing they're only really missing, and they can really lean on Call of Duty for that, is a shooter. But again, with Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, God, with that being there, you can kind of rely on your third-party relationship. And Sony and Activision have been in bed this whole generation, so I'm assuming that's going to continue on into the next one. So they're really well-rounded out for a launch title series.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it. Launch lineups are tough. They're really tough to get, and very seldomly do you see someone absolutely nail it. And I think I wouldn't say they nailed it this time, but this is more than enough. I think so. The only must-get game for me right here is Miles Morales, and we're going to talk about that later. Demon Souls, just like you, I'm very fascinated by, and everything in my mind is screaming, don't get this. You don't have the facilities for this, big man. You can't do this. You know you can't do this. And I'm like, yes, I do know I can't do this. It's like when I bought Dark Souls 3 and I'm like, oh, but it looks fun. Everybody's playing the lore. And I'm like, bro, like, you don't have the reflexes for that, man. You know that. Castlevania is whooping you 30 years later. Like, come on, man. But, yeah, man, I'm intrigued by it. The only apprehension is obviously the $70 price range. Mm-hmm. For me, I'm not necessarily, and I guess we could talk about the price differentials here because, yeah, I pretty much have the same thoughts as you with Sackboy and Astros. Cute little platformers. I'm probably going to dabble in one of them. Astros comes in, so I'm going to have that. Sackboy, I like Little Big Planet. I love the soundtrack. As long as they keep the spirit of Little Big Planet in it, I'm there. That's all. As long as they have the amazing soundtrack and real crafty look to it, I'm all for it because I love that world. But again, it's been a very long time since I've really dived into a Little Big Planet game. It's probably the second one, but very much the first one. The third one I didn't really touch at all. So it's been a while. But yeah, the price ranges. So what they announced was some games are going to have a $70 launch game. And obviously with, season passes and stuff like that, we've seen $80, $90 digital collector's editions, whatever. But this is just $70 base game. What are your feelings about them playing around with price like that? We knew this was coming eventually. They've had the $60 price range pretty much, since the PlayStation 2 or something like that?
Yeah, and I think scaling makes sense because it's funny because I was looking at it and I want to say somebody tweeted out this weekend an old EB Games flyer or whatever company it was where like Donkey Kong Country was like $70 at release and then other games were like 50, 40, and I think it's good to return to those scales because I believe Miles Morales is not a full 70 because it's not like the sequel, but Spider-Man 2 will obviously come out at 70. Demon Souls is a full 70. I think that I'm okay with this because instead of getting what we were all expecting is a overall every game is now going to be $70, $10 price hike, which is not that bad, including inflation and the value of the dollar now to what it was 7 years ago, to what it was 10 years ago, to what it was in 2006.
Yeah.
So these games are still cheap for especially what we're getting for some of these games. Imagine, the people who are like Demon Souls is their game, the amount of hours they're going to put into that game is going to way surpass $70. If you look at it that way. The Witcher 3 I always use that as an example. The Witcher could have come up for $100 for the amount of content that was in there. So I was okay with this. I'm glad not too many people were like hurt by this, and I think literally the sports games, EA, and some of the Call of Duty stuff softened the blow because they've all come out talking about how if you want the free upgrade for some of these games get complete free upgrade, but I know there was some of the sports games or I think it was Call of Duty as well, that if you want the upgrade to the new systems when they launch, you have to get the $70 version. And so that stuff really helped the blow because at least Sony was upfront, well, sort of, and they're like, listen, some of these titles have to be $70 because that's what it costs to make them now. Well, behind the scenes and all these extra stuff. So I'm okay with the pricing. It's not like now if you were talking like all games were jumping $80, $90, that's when we have an issue. A $10 price uppitch for some of the bigger titles, like I'm not gonna have a problem with that at all.
Yeah, I'm not mad at $70 games. I'm not in favor of a $70 standard because I already feel some games have already shown at $60 that they are not worth that full price. So like a game like Resident Evil 3, I feel like would have trouble justifying $60, let alone $70 price run. Mm-hmm. So I think people just need to be honest with themselves in terms of publishers and developers about where they should fall. So I'm okay with a $70 game existing, but you have to be judicious when you use that price range. So again, you brought up Witcher, maybe Cyberpunk is a great idea. Demon Souls, it all depends on the player. If you're one of those people who are hardcore enough out of it, you can get $70 out of it. But if you're someone like us that are like, maybe we will do good. Maybe that's not something we want to fork out 70. That's something you're going to have to make a choice. People are going to have to be judicious with their dollar. And I feel like they already had to do that at $60, but certainly at $70 and above, you have to be judicious with how much are you going to get out of this game. So I'm okay with some people playing around with 70, but by no means should that be a standard thing that a lot of games,
No,
especially
absolutely
annualized franchises, don't
Yeah.
even come near that $70 price tag. Stay away, Activision. Stay away, EA. This is not for you guys. This
Yeah,
is
I'm really curious how these sports games are going to do it, because people are really upset with, even though they're selling like gangbusters, because they do every year, the sports games people are really tearing apart quality-wise, and they were charging 60 and 70 if you wanted the special edition, I think, of like 2K, so you get Mamba edition, so you can bring it to the next gen, and it's all this weird stuff. Those games are going to have a lot harder time justifying $70, and again, that's why I'm glad it's more of a scale. And PlayStation's actually been doing this for a while. If you remember, the Ratchet and Clank remake launched at 40.
yes.
So that was fantastic. Obviously, I assume Ratchet and Clank Drift Apart, whatever it's called, Drift Apart, is going to probably be a 70 because it is a full-fledged sequel.
Yeah, it's definitely going up for sure. Whether 60
Yeah.
or 70, I'm not sure.
But it may even just go from 40 to 60, which is a complete difference because, I mean, Insomniac's pulling crazy stuff out of their hats over there.
Yeah, all I ever will say is price things what you want. You just have to justify it, no matter what it is. So if you could justify it and you're like, hey, the base game's 100 hours long, yeah, charge what you have to charge. If they wanted to charge a little bit more expensive for Persona 6 when that comes out, I'm not mad at that. But in the event that, they try to launch the next Madden or NBA game or, whatever, Call of Duty
70.
expansion or whatever, for 70, you're bugging out with that. That's insane because, again, the value's not there to justify that price range. So
Absolutely.
I guess we can jump into the more controversial aspect of what happened with the PS5 lately, which is pre-orders went up a few hours pretty much after the presentation with little to no warning. PlayStation said in the following tweet, "Let's be honest, PS5 pre-orders could have been a lot smoother. We apologize for that. Over the next few days, we will release more PS5 consoles for pre-order. Retailers will share more details, and more PS5s will become available through the end of the year." So pretty much for you guys who weren't paying too much attention, the PS5 event goes live. We get all the information. We don't get a lot of information about when pre-orders are going to go live in terms of that video, but very shortly after, GameStop Ireland are starting to go live. Walmart starts to go live. Target goes shortly after there. And out of nowhere, suddenly we're in the pre-order craze. Out of nowhere, no heads up from PlayStation. That their little email thing that's like, hey, sign up for a chance, that doesn't happen until like a day or two later. So it's just absolute mayhem. People are scrambling to get it. We were able to get our consoles amongst all that chaos, luckily. Just barely. But yeah, what a strange rollout, and it's so strange that pretty much, even PlayStation acknowledged that, like, that wasn't the smoothest way, and this was very obviously a case of retailers breaking their launch date pretty much. They get a little antsy for whatever reason made Walmart go. I don't know. I've been seeing that tweet roll around, which is like, oh, you want to wait? We're not going to. So they just went ahead. And obviously, the moment Walmart went, the rest of them are not going to lose out on sales and craze. So naturally, they're going to launch two right after them. So some people blame Sony. Some people don't. I think this is just a mismanagement of everything. If they're able to hold people to embargoes for game details, I would imagine you could probably, if you really wanted to, hold people to an embargo for launching pre-orders. But for whatever reason, they couldn't. So, Steve, what's your opinion on the whole pre-order situation? And then we could talk about the way the influencers seem to get a code in their emails, but nobody else did. I want to talk about that too after.
Yeah, so it was... What a disaster, because I felt, so after the conference ended, they ended the conference with the release date, the prices, and all that stuff. So I was like, cool. Shortly after they tweeted, because homeboy Jeff Keighley over there also should not have been on Twitter that night. He goes, I believe, or whatever, I hear that retailers are going to start pre-orders tomorrow. Sony then tweets a little bit after that, starting tomorrow, different retailers at different times are going to open their pre-orders, which they don't have control of what time, Walmart updates their website and stuff like that. So I'm like, cool, I can rest easy tonight. Tomorrow, I'm going to have my notifications on deck. I'm going to have my laptop, and it's time. Not even, 30 minutes, Jeff Keighley, again, man. Oh, pre-orders can go live any minute. Like, what? Whoa, what do you mean? I was walking out the shower when I got the notification. I'm like, what do you mean? You guys just said tomorrow. And for a second I was like, maybe it'll be some weird mom pop, small, weird Indian or like other countries.
Amazon France.
Yeah, someone's like that. I'm like, I'm not worried about it. I don't follow Walmart on Twitter, but someone retweeted it. Walmart says whatever that tweet was, why wait, whatever. Pre-orders go live now. And I panicked like crazy. There's no way this is how it should have been. I don't know if there was a miscommunication. Somebody's rep or someone somewhere messed up because the pre-orders weren't supposed to go live. And then at that point, it was all or nothing. Target would try to, obviously, they want to be out there. Best Buy was trying to get out there. I'm calling GameStops, and we're in the middle of a pandemic. I'm not going to GameStops casually. I'm calling my 3 closest GameStops, like, are your pre-orders live? One of their stores, they're like, yeah, out of nowhere. They had no, and I trust this person, they had no notification that they were going live that day. They're like, yeah, we got 12. Pre-orders just showed up in our system. And obviously by the time I would have got there, they were already sold out. They had like 8 people while I was on the phone with them come in and asking for it. Other GameStops didn't get it. Like, I called my other GameStop and they're like, yeah, we keep getting calls. He goes, 2 other stores got their pre-orders. We got none. One store I called, they're like, yeah, we got 3 all digital editions. That's it. Not that they were sold out. They're like, that's what went live in their system. So I think there was definitely a mess control. There was definitely a panic control that was lacking. I think also the fact that we've waited so long for these systems, people have also gotten so antsy, and I think this stuff was obviously supposed to go live way sooner, because I'm assuming on the back end Walmart had this already up, and then the page went live too early, or someone gave them the go to open that page at that time, and it caused a panic. Luckily, sorry, you can go.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I don't mean to be Mr. I told you so. But check the episodes in the past. I told you guys the pre-orders were going to be a mess. I knew it was going to be a mess. For many things, the online infrastructure is always a messy situation. Plus, it's an in-demand console. Plus, we're in the COVID era, which means that supply is going to be constrained and everything's a absolute mess. And everybody's trying to outmarket and out-release each other. And it's just, I knew this was going to be chaos. And I honestly was not banking on my ability to even be able to get one of these, to be honest with you. So the fact that we were able to do it is a freaking miracle. I have no clue how we pulled that off.
Yeah, I guess we just got lucky in a sense. And like I was telling you off recording, every day that I don't get a cancellation email is like, it's another, like, because we're so close to these release. We're under 8 weeks, I want to say.
That's great.
Like, we're under 2 months for release, and it's nerve-wracking because Amazon's already sent the email saying, hey, whoever. Oh, and that's not even the thing that Amazon, at least over here in the Northeast, Amazon went live with their pre-orders at like 2 a.m. And don't know why. By the time I got up for work at 3 a.m., 3:30 a.m., and I saw the notification went, the page was dead. Amazon sent the email that, hey, pre-orders were too many. We're not going to get all these. We're not going to get these all out at launch. These are the same guys who couldn't get me Tony Hawk at launch. They couldn't get me most of my games at launch. They couldn't get me certain games at launch. Animal Crossing, all these games. So obviously I knew Amazon was not going to get those at launch. Walmart has been better at it so far. And I heard apparently Best Buy did too. Have been better where they're like, they keep opening and closing it because they're like, they take a bunch of pre-orders, they make sure they can satisfy them, and then they can kind of let them. So we're feeling good, but we did also call this. And people are going to kind of look at the Xbox One, and the main thing Xbox has is that they have like a time schedule. They can't control when the websites go down, when people crash it. That's not what people were upset about with PlayStation. They're upset that you told us a different day, then they go live 30 minutes later when people are on their way home from work. They think they have the time. They think, I can get home and do this, and tomorrow I'll worry about it. I'll take tomorrow off from work, whatever it have you be. And then you go and just botch it, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. I just keep hearing that clip over and over again when the marketing director is talking, where he's like, don't worry, you'll have ample time for pre-orders. And it's like, man, the literal opposite. It's one thing to be like, oh, only a day heads up. Well, it's not ideal, but that's fine. But I mean, we're talking 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And that's why right after the conference, I immediately opened my computer. I sent you the picture that I'm like, I know, because I know it's going to be a mess. I know after the conference, the way they were talking, I was like, okay, things are going to start going live soon. I'm pretty sure somebody's going to break it. And so There we go. Now, I also wanted to bring up something that I haven't seen any stories about. I haven't seen too many people talking about, but I think it's very interesting because I've been paying a close eye on it. So a couple of weeks ago, you remember when we signed our PSN onto PlayStation's official site for a chance to be able to get a PS4.
Mm-hmm.
Or PS5, sorry. And so we all did that, and we were all wondering, like, what are the qualifications to be able to get this? And some people are like, well, maybe a heavy activity on your account. Maybe if you got a lot of trophies. Maybe you've had your account for a long time. This will maybe increase your chance because it looks like they might be prioritizing the best of the best or the fans of the fans on the PlayStation ecosystem. So that's beautiful. Lo and behold, maybe 2 days later after the event or something like that, I'm starting to see all these tweets. And every single influencer related to PlayStation magically seem to get those emails saying like, hey, you've been chosen, which is very interesting considering the fact not that normal people, or not normal, but non-famous people didn't get that. They certainly did, but the fact that every single influencer seemed to qualify is very interesting, and it makes me wonder, like, what was the point even of having the mainstream public sign up for something that was very obviously you were just going to prioritize the people with the biggest followings online as opposed to the people who played the most. So that was a very interesting thing, because again, I saw some non-famous people post that they got the email notification to be able to get the PS5, but I just think it's not a coincidence to see every single IGN, GameSpot, Polygon, Kotaku employee all seem to get that email. And very seldomly did you see someone non-famous get that email. And on top of that, once they redeem all that, I did see a follow-up that was like, hey, there's still PlayStation Live for there. So they had access. Like that's
one thing, yeah.
It's insane, right?
So, yeah, I saw that go out. When I saw these emails going out, I checked my email because I was one of the... As soon as that thing went up, I put my, ID in there. I've been on PlayStation for a long time. I've been using the same account for a long time since the PS3, PSP era. So I'm like, maybe I have a good chance. Like, I'm constantly active, hours, whatever. Then I see all these influencers, all these people. I'm like, okay, so maybe... From my understanding, they did two waves. They did those guys first, obviously.
Yep.
And they won't ever admit that. That's fine. And then I see a few, not influencers. People be like, hey, I just got this email. And you get a specific code, and you have to get that invitation to go redeem it on the website. And I see all these people tweeting like, hey, PlayStation still says they have it in stock, but it's locked behind this invitation thing. And I'm like, that's super weird because... what was the criteria? You never told us the criteria. You shouldn't have even let us waste our time signing up and hoping for that if you weren't going to tell us what we needed to do to get it. And it's whatever. It's weird that they said they had so many in stock, but they weren't sending out enough emails. When I know tons of people did that. And I'm like, well, and I kept looking like, are normal people getting this? A buddy of mine calls me and says he got the invitation. Because... Yeah. He works at Best Buy, and by the time he went to work the next day, they were weird out of like pre-orders and stuff. I'm like, you work there. How are you? You don't have the hookup? You didn't have one of your buddies like put one down for you?
Yeah.
And so he got it. Now, it is good to note that the system's the same price, but they have a lot of tax on it. I don't know what exactly was going on. Because he sent me the receipt. I don't know why he sent me the receipt, but he sent me his receipt. And he's like, yo, look, I got it. I'm like, why is it so much? But... whatever it may be, so it's weird.
Maybe they're not shipping it from... Maybe they're shipping it from somewhere else. This batch.
Yeah, it's weird stuff. I don't know what they thought they were doing there with that. Because you want to... they really started... They're still in the middle of launching their PlayStation Direct, like, purchase site. But you're going to expose it this way. And I understand they didn't want to just open it up to everyone and then have their website crash. But this was just even more insulting when you were obviously choosing your favorites. You were choosing, or I'm not going to go through names, but specific people that we know you guys are in bed with, obviously. The people that you're going to send them 3 consoles anyway so they can review it weeks in advance and stuff like that. So it's like, that's weird when your people who've been supporting you, actually giving you money, are being pushed to the side. It's again, everything about the way they did this, about the ID registration and the release and pre-orders in general was really just a mess, and I'm not sure who was in charge of that or what got out of hand, but it's unacceptable.
My frustrations don't come from the fact that I didn't get that, because obviously we secured our own pre-orders. That's fine. My frustration with this whole pre-order launch is the fact that they say one thing and they seem to be doing another. So if you're having this online almost raffle like thing to be able to get a chance, like many companies do with hot launches in clothing and different stuff in tech, we've seen this before, but it's really just a way to prioritize and basically send out a glorified PR kit or review kit. That is what I take issue with. Just like when they say, hey, you're going to have ample time to do this and do something else, that even their plan was a day later. The retailers broke it, but even their plan was only a day later. That's not ample time. And not to mention, we didn't know the price until right before. So what about people who are more constrained for cash, who needed all that prep time to know exactly how much to have for the launch? You only gave them a day. And then on top of that, they broke that. So they definitely don't stand a chance. So I just feel like there's some kind of not customer friendly stuff. And as much as I love what they're doing with the PS5, I love this console, I'm getting this console, I'm a big fan of PlayStation. I think it's important to hold them accountable for very obvious slip ups and non-customer friendly practices, because I feel like this whole pre-order launch was kind of botched, and I don't like all the miscommunications.
It's like you were saying, it's almost it's insulting, or I was saying it's insulting in certain aspects, because like you're one day in advance, you could even been like, oh, pre-orders open Friday. That would have been way more understanding, even though it's still short notice. But like I wasn't prepared because under no, I mean I was prepared, but I didn't have my accounts lined up the way I needed to, so I had to grab my wife's card and be like, oh, hey, hold on, I need your card real quick because Sony really screwed up, and I thought I would have a little bit more time to move things around that way I needed to, that I was prepared to do. But you're saying, for the people who need to know that, and people, we're early on in the week over here in in America, we kind of pay rent on the 1st, or mortgages on the 1st, so people were just kind of maybe not even had their next check yet, or whatever it may be, and it's like you want to give people the opportunity to purchase your item. Like, that's how you're going to get sales. Give us the opportunity. Which is why it was a big deal when they came out with their tweet, because Sony's really not too often coming out and being like, hey, we messed up. So they came out, hey, that's why with their tweet, they're like, listen, it wasn't the way we wanted to. We're going to do everything we can to get more of these out at launch, and pre-orders even out soon. Yeah,
and to wrap up this section, so before we move on, because if you haven't noticed, this is going to be a long freaking show.
Yeah.
This kind of strategy of like launching out of nowhere with no heads up, no price or anything like that, this plays into two people's hands pretty much, because you guys put everybody in a situation where influencers with contacts benefit from this, because again, they have their contacts, they'll be able to secure. You best believe that the IGN guys are going to be able to get PS5s, no problem. It's not going to be a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But this also plays into the hands of the scalpers, because they're ready to go. They got the bots going. Money is not a problem. They're flipping consoles left and right. They got the money for this. But the average consumer is the one who takes the hit. So that's why I wanted to bring this up, because again, like, scalping culture is such a big issue in the game industry, especially with like these new devices and games and stuff like that. And I feel like in many ways, PlayStation inadvertently played right into their hands and gave them the perfect scenario basically to grab up so many of the consoles and be able to flip them. I went on eBay yesterday. Low end, it was 800. High end, I'm seeing 1,200, 1,500 bundles reselling online, and I'm just hoping and praying people are not falling for that and are just remaining patient, because I would hate to see people burned like that.
Yeah, especially so. I was always under the impression, and this happened with me with my Switch, where I was like, if I get 2 Switches, I'm going to sell the other one for the exact same amount I paid for it. I wasn't going to scalp it. So if for whatever reason
that's not a scalp.
Yeah. If I would have got a second PS4 for the reason, I would have found someone who didn't get one and be like, hey, I'll charge you whatever I had to pay with tax and shipping or whatever it may be, and I call even. I'm not gaining, but PlayStation, it is what it is. But hopefully this starts to. It's weird because it's like we hope that more pre-orders come through and stuff like that, but we're also so close to launch, and it's just scary for people who really want the system and haven't been able to secure one.
Yeah, so I guess we can keep it moving on to the last part of the PlayStation 5 event, which is the actual announcements that we got. Some of these games we've already talked about, some of them we haven't. So I'm just going to run through the major ones, and then we can stop and talk about which ones are the most interesting. Mm-hmm. So the first one is one of the ones pretty much that I'm the most excited for, which is Final Fantasy 16 was finally revealed.
Yes.
Boy, does that look good. Holy crap. So, I'm assuming you're excited about this. What do you think about Final Fantasy 16?
Yeah, let me tell you, that's big moves. Those are some real big moves to open your conference with Final Fantasy 16. And this has been a rumor for a while now that, it's going to come out on this conference or this conference. And who knows what it would have looked like if we would have... Well, they wouldn't have been at E3, but all these other game shows, probably Tokyo Game Show would have probably been the one that would have made the most sense with Sony.
Yeah, that's a good guess, yeah.
And Sony and Square there. But my goodness, does this look good. Holy cow, it's so good to be back in more of that aesthetic, more of that medieval sort of look. You know, it's fine. We've been on the futuristic stuff for a while now with the 313 games, and we had, Final Fantasy 15, which was like weird and development hell. This one obviously seems to be like we knew what we were supposed to make. We don't have, the Kingdom Hearts guys are not on this project. The Final Fantasy 7 Remake guys are not on this project. We've got a certain team. We got people who know what they're doing making this game, and it looks good. It looks so... I didn't know what I was looking at first, and then when I saw a big bird, I was like,
Chocobo.
So I was watching the whole stream on my way home from work, and I literally just said, I was like, is that a chocobo? And my dad's like, what? And I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm in the zone over here. I think I saw a chocobo, and then... Yeah, Final Fantasy 16 looks great. It's probably going to be a while before we ever get this game. But I'm excited that it's there. Surprising enough, it is a console exclusive, which means it will not...
That's the biggest thing. The moment they showed that, I'm like, that is not good for Xbox. That's not good.
Obviously it will be available on PC, and what we were seeing were for PC screenshots and stuff, mimicking PS5 hardware and stuff like that. But I would under no circumstance... I would have guessed a console exclusive. Timed exclusive, yes, because that's what Final Fantasy 7 is. Final Fantasy 7 is not on Xbox yet. I was super surprised for that. Console exclusive. But for us, it's not going to be an issue. We get to play Final Fantasy 16. Obviously, it looks like it's playing more into that action turn-based stuff we're getting used to now with Final Fantasy 7 Remake. So it looks fantastic. I can't wait. I'm super excited.
Yeah, the most awesome thing that excited me about it is the fact that it's an old school throwback in its themes, like with the crystals and the medieval environment, but it's so new school in its action. I mean, it obviously takes cues from Final Fantasy 15. There is a bit of 7 Remake in there too. So I'm really, really liking what I'm seeing in terms of the combat. It's fast, it's kinetic, but it's so Final Fantasy in its themes. And just seeing the different summons and stuff like that and the way they're going to look, I'm really excited to jump into this. And yeah, the moment they announced that this was a PlayStation exclusive, I'm like, wow, this is a fantastic get for PlayStation. It's almost going back to like the PlayStation 1 days when they had that exclusivity thing. And I immediately thought, I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of things we say that Xbox needs to fix this next generation. I don't want to make this too much about Xbox because I'm not a console war guy. I just think it's important to note. One of the big complaints that a lot of people have about Xbox and something they need to fix is the lack of Japanese relationships. And that's always been a concern for them, is that if you want to start outselling PlayStation, you need to start moving consoles in other regions other than the United States. And so seeing this and Square basically doubling down on their PlayStation relationship is concerning, because that tells me, okay, going into the Series X, those relationships still might not be there. And that's a concerning thing, because again, this is a mainline Final Fantasy game. You do not get bigger than this in terms of the JRPG scene right now. And the only competition is Persona and Dragon Quest maybe. But Final Fantasy is massive. It's an old franchise, and for them to get exclusivity again after all these years, because when the name's only expanded in relevance, is just an incredible thing. So I gotta give them a shout out, man. That is not an easy get, and I feel like a lot of people are overlooking how major of a deal that is. Again, Final Fantasy hasn't had this major of a shift since they jumped from Nintendo to PlayStation back on the PlayStation 1 days from the Super Nintendo. Sure. Yep. So that's a big thing. I guess we can move on to the next one, which is we dabbled on it, but Spider-Man Miles Morales, we got not only a trailer of it, but we got some gameplay from it. And the most awesome thing, first off, I read a lot of Miles Morales, so I'm pretty familiar with the source material. And they nailed it. And my biggest fear was, I hope this is not a reskin of Peter Parker as Spider-Man, because they're fundamentally different characters. They fight completely different, and thematically they're different. They're from different areas. This is not Queens, you know what I mean? Exactly. So they nailed it. Like, And again, I was like getting goosebumps watching him walk through Spanish Harlem and hearing the salsa in the background and just seeing his mom running for office and seeing like, black people walking around, Spanish people walking around, Asian people. Like, I'm like, that is New York right there. They got it. They nailed it. Mm-hmm. And not a lot of games get that. You know what I mean? Like, when you're in Midtown Manhattan, you get a very specific look at people. But when you're in Spanish Harlem, there's a very specific type of demographic and mix and cultural mix that very few areas in the world have. And the fact that they were able to nail that and show that off in the trailer, I mean, was emotional for me because I've never seen something like that in games before. And again, Miles Morales being half Hispanic, half black, there's a different approach you need to take it, and just small touches into the way that they approach some of the quips he makes and some of the soundtrack choices they made tells me that not only are they trying to do something different, but they understand this character and they understand his roots and where he's from. And some people obviously made fun of the fact that, yeah, there are trap drums when he's fighting. But again, for anybody who understands Miles and his proximity to hip-hop culture especially, this makes all the sense in the world. And I'm just so excited for this game. Not only because I love Spider-Man and I love the Spider-Man game that Insomniac's been making, but on top of that, they're putting a lot of love and care into making this a very different thing and accurately portraying this character. So what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so obviously I believe a lot of the same things you do. Obviously, I was always worried that, is this going to be just a costume swap, for lack of a better term? And it's not. Miles has very different powers, and with the invisibility, with the shocking ability and stuff like that, and they integrated it very well. It looked like it almost played different. Obviously, the basics with the attacks and the dodging is going to be there. That's the base of the game. That's what's going to be in Spider-Man 2. But having Miles just move different, act different, talk different, struggling differently, because he is a little bit less experienced as a Spider-Man. So him, and that's what really we need to see. The representation in this game really touched. It was just, tremendous, it kind of hit me. When he walked down, you see all the I'm Puerto Rican, so seeing all the Puerto Rican flags and all these people of color, and it's like, I grew up around with, I grew up very, very close to New York, so I was like always around different people, different ethnicity, styles, and cultures, and to see that all represented so well, not in a comical way. Like, this is what it would look like if you walked out that apartment that day, and it's so fantastic. It's so good, and huge respect for Insomniac to really not take like an easy way out and been like, listen, this is Miles' game. This is gonna be Miles' story. I'm a huge fan of Miles, obviously. So seeing all that stuff really, really close to what his like source material is fantastic. I mean, like I said earlier, this is gonna be the most played game for me at the beginning of the cycle.
Yeah, no doubt.
Even though they did come out that it's gonna be on PS4. I'm obviously getting it on PS5, and I cannot wait. It's gonna be fantastic.
Yeah, man. You pretty much said it all. Yeah, I'm so excited for this. I've never seen a game I feel like really nail the culture like that. And so, and again, I didn't have high expectations. I mean, I didn't expect them to be walking down the street eating acapulco, but like,
yeah.
but like, I mean, they really, really got it, and I'm just so excited for this game. So the next one is a very interesting one that has been long in the works, which is Harry Potter Hogwarts Legacy. Yeah. I'm mixed on this one. Is this something that interests you at all?
So so me and Harry Potter have a weird relationship. I never saw the movies growing up. Due to the way I grew up, I wasn't allowed to watch those movies.
Oh, same here.
Which is this whole separate conversation. But so I bought the Blu-ray sets a couple years ago, and so I watched like 1, 2, and 3 super long movies. It's coincidentally I just the other day watched the fourth one, Goblet Fire or something like that. Yes, Goblet
Fire is the fourth one. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny because I'm like, and I'm kind of into it. I'm like, now that they're getting a little bit more mature and like the themes are getting a little bit dark, I'm like, oh, now this is kind of really striking a chord with me. And now here comes this Harry Potter RPG they've finally been talking about, and I'm like, coincidentally, I'm like, now, in my opinion, it doesn't look the greatest. I don't know what's kind of going on there. This game's obviously been leaked and rumored. Remember, I want to say almost like 4 years ago, there was that whole gameplay sequence leaked.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah, so it's like something's been going on with this game, and you can tell. Now, we don't know if it's going to be considered a full-fledged $70, $60 release. Is it going to be something smaller? Is there going to be what the microtransactions gonna look like, because WB is very iffy with that stuff. So it's kind of a mix. So it's like I don't know what's going on with it. I need to see way more into it. I don't know how I'm gonna feel when I finish the Harry Potter movies. And I know this game takes place like hundreds of years before that.
Yeah, it's in the 1800s.
Yeah, so I'm not worried about all that kind of connection. But is this game too late? I know, and I'm not gonna get into the whole J.K. Rowling thing because Kotaku and Polygon can have that, and all that. It's just like, what's this game really gonna show me? What's the beat by beat gameplay? Is it a little bit more action? Is it a little bit more turn-based? Am I going to feel like I'm actually doing some of this stuff? Or is it just kind of be like a low cash grab? We need to see way more because what we saw did not look good, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to say about this. The only thing is, and I'm glad you noticed it too, I was a little bit confused that a game that's been in development for so long, they're first showing them off. Typically, when a game is first shown off, they show off a lot of pre-rendered cutscenes and stuff like that.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's just me. When I was watching the trailer, I was seeing a lot of jankiness, like a lot of stuttering and drop frames and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is a peculiar way to show off your game for the first time. It's one thing when you get hands-on, you get people hands-on, and it's a little clunky and stuff like that because it's an early build and stuff like that. For their launch trailer to not run the best and the textures are not the highest, and this is supposedly something that's been in development for years, is an interesting thing. That's one thing. And on top of that, I'm just curious to see how the reception to this, again, Harry Potter, massive franchise, been around for a very long time. I don't know what the cultural relevance is, especially into video gaming. I'm not sure. And obviously all the controversy with J.K. Rowling, I don't know if that translates into lost sales at all. I'm not sure. So this is a game that I really have my eyes on because I have no clue if this is going to do well or not, or if it's even going to be good. I love me some Harry Potter, so I'm probably going to jump into it as long as there's nothing right before it comes out to dissuade me from that. Because again, an open world Harry Potter game where I can kind of create my own character and level up and go to classes and stuff like that. If they incorporated some kind of social link system similar to like Persona, I think that'd be really awesome too. So there's a lot of different directions they could go with it, but there's also a ton of way they can botch it, to be honest with you. So we'll see. WB is in a weird place, to be honest, with the sales and the not sales, and I don't know what they're doing over there. So we'll see if this game comes out any good. The next one, Call of Duty game, Black Ops Cold War. They showed off some gameplay finally, so we get to look at how this game really looks. I'm a campaign guy. I like what I see, but again, it's Call of Duty. If you played Call of Duty, especially within the last few years, you generally know what you're getting into. The whole term they don't really use anymore, but yeah, it's boots on the ground gameplay pretty much. Action movie choreography. I like what I'm seeing. It looks fun. Do you have any interest in Black Ops Cold War?
I mean, I enjoy Call of Duties in general. It's more my comfort food every year. Black Ops, obviously, I have a little bit more love for because I really love that series, Treyarch, and I'm really glad that Raven is finally getting like the recognition it needs to, and they're getting kind of promoted from just making multiplayer maps and stuff like that. The campaign looked fun. It looked like a fun mission. It just did look more like Call of Duty, which is not a bad thing. It looks like what I want it to look like, what I expect. They followed the gameplay with the announcement. They called it an alpha, but it's really not an alpha. Went live this weekend at the time, the weekend of September 18th and stuff. I jumped into it. I don't care for the multiplayer anymore. The multiplayer was just more of the same. Who sees who first and who gets the trigger first. Basically. But it's funny when you do load it up the menu, they do show the campaign with the big lock on it. They show Warzone with the lock on it, which means Warzone really is being integrated into Cold War. They showed multiplayer, then they have zombies already there, but it's all locked. Again, I jumped in, I did one quick match, and I was like, yeah, this multiplayer is still not for me.
Yeah.
But campaign and zombies, I'm all for it, so quickly deleted that off my system. So I'm excited in the same way I'm excited to see Call of Duty every year, where super cool campaign, hopefully, a fun zombie thing for a while, and then I kind of put it away.
Yeah, that's that. It's pretty much our kind of like yearly comfort food that we know what to expect, and as long as you give us what we're looking for, we're good to go, and then you kind of move on from there. So the next one is a game we've already kind of seen, but we kind of got an extended trailer for it, Resident Evil Village. Like what I'm seeing, I'm excited for it. Resident Evil, a franchise that is a peculiar, lots of ups and lots of downs, but Everything I've seen about this looks like pretty much the gameplay is 7 with the setting and story similar to like a 4. So pretty much everything that I'd personally want out of a Resident Evil game. What do you think about what they showed off?
I mean, you guys know me. You know me. I love everything Resident Evil, good or bad. So it's so obviously this looks really, really good. So I'm super excited. I love that. You know, real big, especially when they did it on purpose. That merchant right at the end of the trailer, I was like, "Yo, Resident Evil 4, are you kidding me?" But you know, it's cool to see there. It's cool to see that Ethan and Chris still have like. I haven't beat the DLC to 7, so I don't know what their relationship is. They obviously seem not to really like get along with each other or whatever it may be. I'm excited again. I'm okay with not seeing any more. I think they said 2021. I don't know or 2022. I don't want to see any more until like the game's about to come out. Like I don't want to see any more until the game's ready because I want to go in super blind. I did the same with 7, so I love me some Resident Evil.
Yeah, next one, Deathloop. We got another trailer from them. That I believe that's an Arcane Leon and Bethesda game there. We've seen this multiple times at this point. I think it's cool, looks stylistic. It's not super my cup of tea in terms of something that's really catching my attention that much. But are you feeling what you've seen with Deathloop?
Yeah, so at the beginning I wasn't. We've been seeing Deathloop now for a while, and I gave no care to it because I didn't really understand it. Now I kind of see that you're like, oh, you're an assassin trying to hunt down these other 8 people. Wow, there's this other assassin, hunting only you down. I'm like, oh, okay. Now I kind of understand what the gameplay more is because they kept showing the same beginning cutscene where the guy would like slide, shoot some people over a car, and that was it. Seeing a little bit more diverse is cool. Again, I think it really depends. I only ever played Dishonored 1, which was Arcane, so I liked what they did there, but that's also a while ago. Yeah. So I don't really know what it is. How much is Bethesda putting their nose in it? Are they just publishing it? Because they did publish Dishonored, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So I'm more interested in it. All really depends when this game hits. What's the price when it's gonna hit? What's the content in there? What's really there? Do I have to sign into a Bethesda.net account? And come on. Don't make it a hassle to play your game. But I'm a little bit more excited to see it now than I've ever been. And if I'm not wrong, this is also just announced as a console exclusive.
Yeah, I believe so, which is awesome.
PC and PlayStation 5, maybe 4 only. So interesting get, but obviously that doesn't hurt.
So the next one, DMC 5, got a special edition for that. Looks really good. Looks like they added a whole bunch of stuff. I know you like yourself some DMC. Is this enough added to justify you going back to it?
So this is where I have a quick problem. So one, they did spoil this on the launch trailer to DMC 5 a long time ago on who V is and who Virgil is, and obviously in this one they show literally V ripping out of Virgil's chest. So I mean, the story's not really what people play Devil May Cry for. My problem is that a lot of the stuff that's added is kind of stuff that came in afterwards, and some of them are like some paid DLC that came out afterwards. The big addition obviously is playing as Virgil. Now, my problem with that is on the PC version, if you go in there and literally change one number in like the specs, you unlock Virgil to play as. So Virgil's in the game. He is fully playable. He's just kind of locked in there. And we always assumed that we were getting a special edition upgrade or like a $20 thing so you can play as Virgil. They're locking it behind the special edition that's exclusive to the next gen, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. Pricing wise, depends what they do with it if I'm gonna get it, because I would love to. I've been wanting to replay Devil May Cry 5. This spoke right to me. They always do a special edition a couple years after the main game. I'm just more confused on why is it so it's digital only at launch. Does that mean they're gonna release a later version? Do I even need to? Is Virgil a story aspect of it? Because again, he's in the not trying to get too spoiler, but he's not in the game for a long time. So what does that look like? Is he just going to be in the Bloody Palace? I don't really play too much of the Bloody Palace, so I'm not going to try to drop $40-$50 just to play as Virgil in the Bloody Palace. Hopefully they kind of sweeten the deal a little bit more, or at least give me the option to upgrade this on my current version of Devil May Cry 5. But it's cool for people who haven't played it yet. I know you haven't.
No, I haven't. I'll probably jump into this.
So that'll be good for you because you'll get like a full, more stuff in your game, the better. And Virgil's obviously really cool. I do love him, but don't know if he's gonna be enough for me to repurchase this game.
So the next one is something definitely for you. I don't have much to say about it, but it's Oddworld Soulstorm. This is something they've already announced, but we got some gameplay trailer. What do you think about what they showed?
I mean, it looks great. I'm surprised that I'm glad and surprised that they stuck more with the sort of side-scrolling, which is where Oddworld started. I was worried, before we saw the trailer like a few months ago at the original PS5 event, I was worried they were going to go another 3D route via like Munch's Odyssey and Stranger's Wrath, which was like a weird first-person shooter for Oddworld. I'm glad this is really what Oddworld is running back and forth as Abe with the mob of, the guys with you and trying to avoid the killings and stuff. It looks just more enhanced. I'm actually replaying New and Tasty now, which is a remake of the original Oddworld, and this is a full-fledged sequel, very much the way they did like Ratchet and Clank.
Yep.
So where this sequel is not a remake of 2. So it's exciting to see that. Again, it's all really depending when this lands, because Oddworld is like such a strange game where it's like, what do you do? It's like, you kind of just break people out of a factory. And this one obviously looks like it's expanding way more to like exotic lands and bigger landscapes and stuff like that, and they're going to try to take full-fledged power of like the stronger system. So I'm excited to see that. Like, again, Oddworld's such a weird thing. I don't really talk to many people about because aesthetically it's super weird, and so it's like, how do I tell you what Oddworld is? You're breaking a bunch of slaves out.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, obviously he's named Abe, and there's a lot of coalition to what that connects to history and stuff like that. But it's cool to see Oddworld back, and it's good to see what these guys have been doing. They've been quiet for a long time. Now finally they're really showing that Oddworld Soulstorm is not like a dead project. It's way more alive and ready to be, it looks like it's done. So excited for that.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it can really tap into the same energy that like Medieval was able to tap into, for example, which is just an old retro franchise coming back with a nice coat of paint. And obviously this is a new game, but it has a very old style to the way that they're tapping into the original. So hopefully it can bring back a lot of its old fans and introduce a lot of new people and maybe reignite the love of the franchise. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So the next few we can, skim through. We got Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. It looks like a new console version of the game. I'm assuming it's a new game. I don't think this is a port or anything like that. I'm not a Five Nights guy at all. I don't think you are either.
I'm more interested in the lore, so I watch like game theory a lot. Playing the games I'm not huge into. I'd have to look in. From my research and from what I understand, Security Breach is not a remake, because we did just get these games ported to PS4 and Switch and stuff like that. I don't really know what it is. I know we got that Five Nights VR game on PS4. So I didn't play that either. Five Nights is, it's the horror game right now out there. Somehow it's still alive. This guy is just making these games left and right now, and none of them really connect. He's got like alternate universes now and alternate takes and no real canon storyline. So a fun little Five Nights game. Okay. All right, cool. I'll check it out on Game Theory, I guess.
We have Demon Souls, which we already spoke about. They showed off a lot of gameplay, which is awesome. I want to commend them for that because of this era of pre-rendered cutscenes. They showed us a bunch of gameplay, which is awesome. I love that. We got Fortnite and Unreal Engine 4. I'm not going to lie to y'all and say that it looks exactly the same to me. I couldn't differentiate. I don't play enough Fortnite to be able to differentiate. How did this look to you?
I mean, it looks fine. I don't think Fortnite's going to look any different. I think this is more... Remember that Sony now owns like 2% of Epic, so it's probably like
it's a marketing thing.
Yeah, all right, listen, we own a little bit now. Let's just show Fortnite. I don't know why, because it's not going anywhere. It hasn't left any... Well, it left iOS, but it hasn't left any of these systems, so... Okay, Fortnite's there.
Fortnite's going to be Fortnite. The next one's kind of interesting. We got the PlayStation Plus collection announced for the PS5. So if you have a PlayStation Plus collection or subscription, you're going to have access to a collection of different PS4 games. It's kind of like a greatest hits collection for free if you have the subscription. I think that's really, really awesome. For a little bit, there was a little bit of speculation. Some people are like, oh, is this their PlayStation Now revamp thing? No, it just seems kind of like a little offering to allow you guys to have something to play on the PS5 if you need to go back to the back catalog at all. So there's some cool stuff in this. The one that I'm probably going to jump into just out of literal curiosity because I don't have to pay for it is The Last Guardian. That's one that I would like to go back to and maybe spend an hour or two with, really see what they were doing there. Anything in this collection interest you?
Not too much. I mean,
probably played all of them.
Because I've probably kind of played them all a little bit. I'm looking at the list right now. It's like there's some cool things on there, and if maybe they incorporate like a PS5 patch, I may be able to, bring over. It's weird because they put like Persona 5, but it's not Persona 5 Royal.
Yeah.
So, but also if you just want to casually play Persona, like you don't have to get the Royal version. I think this is obviously laying groundwork for a sort of answer to Game Pass, because this reminds me of Game Pass when it launched originally and nobody was talking about Game Pass. It was really bare bones.
It was just a bunch of first party stuff, right?
It was a bunch of first party things and some weird stuff like Sea of Thieves and stuff was on there. So it's cool. You can adding things to our PlayStation Plus subscription already doesn't hurt. I wonder, is this collection going to get bigger? What changes? Because like because you have like Detroit in there and you have God of War in there, but surprisingly you don't have Spider-Man, and Spider-Man is getting a quote unquote remaster on PS5 if you pre-order Miles or something like that, or so there's a lot of weird stuff in there. So there's like because it was such a quick PlayStation collections, here's like Uncharted 4 and stuff like that. So yeah, if they maybe add something later on, maybe if they add like Uncharted Lost Legacy I still haven't played, I'll jump into that. That'll be cool.
Yeah, I think Sony's made it clear that if there's money to be made still on sales of a game, likely they're not going to offer it as a free thing. It's just something typically where they'll age out or the sales will slow down, where they don't really lose too much by having it available. So the next one, or the last one of this list, and we can keep it moving, is probably the biggest teaser that they showed off, which is formal confirmation that God of War Ragnarok, or something along that lines, the second God of War game, has been teased and confirmed to be coming. Not only is it coming, it's coming in 2021, which blew my mind. I didn't expect it to come this soon. We have gushed about God of War on this show before, so you guys know where we stand on that. But how exciting is it to finally have a confirmation that the second game is coming?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. Again, we've known for a long time, and I follow Corey Barlog on Twitter, and people are constantly tweeting at him, God of War 2, it's God of War, 5, whatever it may be. So it's cool. It's probably going to be called, not the fact that Assassin's Creed is not called Ragnarok, I'm almost certain God of War is going to be called God of War Ragnarok. It won't be called God of War 2 Ragnarok, because they're really trying to leave the number stuff behind, which is good.
Yeah, it's a little tacky now. It's very PlayStation 3 era.
Yeah, so obviously it's not going to be called God of War 5 Ragnarok. So it's interesting they announced it so early. I, under no believe it will be 2021. I don't believe you. Unless, and I've seen some people talk about this, unless Ragnarok is more of a Miles Morales type deal than it is a God of War 2 type deal.
That's interesting.
I don't see how in 3 years they were able to make God of War the sequel. I just don't get it. I just don't understand it. Unless it just doesn't make sense to me. They took a long time to make this God of War, and it was fantastic. Remember, they were working on a whole sci-fi game that got canceled, and they took like 5 years to make God of War. And I understand having the engine and the assets and stuff, it's going to be very different because you're not going to just be walking around. Assumingly, you're not going to be walking around the same areas. You obviously have to fight new enemies and new gods and stuff like that. So it just really depends what Ragnarok is. Is it a sequel? Is it more of a smaller step? Because just because it is God of War doesn't mean it needs to have a full-fledged sequel. Because Ragnarok really is, the revelations. It's the end times, it's the apocalypse and stuff like that. So it's like, where does this go? Everyone assumed there was going to be a new trilogy. And in interviews, it's always seemed like they're going to be talking about a trilogy. But what is it? What is it? Again, I don't believe it's 2021. I just don't see it. I don't see it.
Yeah, it's a little bold. Did they give a date for Horizon?
I think it just says 2021.
Yeah, so if Horizon is 2021 and Ratchet and Clank is 2021, I mean, I don't know if they're gonna shoot their first party clip like back to back to back to back like that. I mean, theoretically they could Nintendo it, because that's what Nintendo did with the Switch, which is they just fired at all cylinders out of the first party for the first few years of the Switch being available to really move consoles, and then slow things down a little bit. So I don't know if PlayStation's gonna have a similar approach to the PlayStation 5 to really come out of the gate swinging hard with a whole bunch of first party stuff and third party stuff. But I think that would be a misstep, and I think it's a little bold. I think it probably slips into 2022. Because even if it did come, it's probably going to be much on the latter half of the year, unless we're completely misunderstanding what this game is. But from all intents and purposes, it seems like this is going to be a full sequel to God of War, and a full sequel to God of War that came out in, I believe, 2018 or something like that. Mm-hmm. There's not a chance in hell they're able to flip that around. And I understand some people saying that a bulk of the legwork has already been done because they created the world, they created the assets and stuff like that. But I don't know Sony Santa Monica, and specifically God of War, to be a studio that will do a quick flip like that. It's going to be fundamentally different. It's going to have new characters, new settings, new everything. And the level of quality that they hit with the first one, they know that this is not something you simply want to reskin a couple of things, have them retread a couple of places. That's not what this is going to be. There's not a chance in hell that they Saints Row for it. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's an asset flip. So, and which is really, it's not going to be. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's exciting. You know, it's cool to hear Kratos talk again. It's been so, it's felt like forever. It's really only been almost 3 years. It would be interesting if they moved it, and I just thought about it. If they moved it to 2022, you assume, again, we don't know. So God of War launched, I want to say a month or 2 months after Spider-Man, or vice versa. Spider-Man came out 2 months after God of War.
They were close, yeah.
So if you assume Spider-Man 2, which is obviously being worked on, would launch in 2022, that'd be cool to have them again in the same year.
That would be really cool.
That'd be really dope. So maybe, again, they're saying 2021. It's obviously 2022. Who knows? Because they didn't have to show this at all. I was hoping this wasn't at the conference. So the fact that they show it, maybe they are way more ahead. But again, they didn't show anything. They showed the symbol with all the Nordic, signs on it, but that's it. So. Yeah,
I say give things a chance to breathe. Let 2021 be the year of Horizon and Ratchet. Let 22 maybe be God of War and Sony Ben's next project, if that's Days Gone 2 or something like that. I think that would be a much better fit than trying to cram everything into 2021.
Yeah, if you had those 3 big games in 2022, like you said, Sony Ben's next project, Spider-Man, well, let's say Spider-Man 2, and then God of War Ragnarok, that's a strong year. Everything else would just be bonus, because those 3 games themselves would be fantastic to have.
And then 2023, the return of Naughty Dog.
Naughty Dog is going to be, I wonder how long it's going to be before Naughty Dog
it depends what they try to do. I mean, if it's this Uncharted Next Generation thing, maybe it's not going to take as long. I doubt it's going to be Last of Us 3. They like to really space those out, so
I think they need to space that out, and then
a new IP would be more interesting.
I think I want a new IP because the next Uncharted is pretty much confirmed to be being made by that other Sony studio.
Oh yeah, they're giving it to a different studio. Yeah,
that they hasn't been confirmed, and I don't even think that studio has even a name yet. But everyone keeps talking like they're working on the next Uncharted.
They're making my Constantine game. That's what they are.
Yeah. Hopefully, I'll take that. All right, so that was it for the PlayStation event. It was such a huge deal. It took such a big part of the show, but there was just so much that happened that Wednesday.
The rest of it's going to go a little faster.
Wednesday was a tough deal. So Jim Ryan had an interview, and it's some stuff we've been kind of talking back and forth on. So he gave an interview with some interesting information. So one major revelation was that Sony's main focus for the PS5 was PS4 backwards compatibility exclusively because of the install base there, because of how many people there have PS4s. They want to obviously bring the 100 millions in players. They would love for them to transition to PS5, obviously, and to bring their catalog over. So that's really, that's exciting that they've been working on that, and now we're getting that 99% of PS4 games work. Who knows what that 1% is? I don't know. I don't know what the 1% of games that aren't working.
Avengers, because it doesn't work on the PS4.
True that.
I'm never going to stop slandering.
Yeah, Avengers is always going to be there. So apparently they said that they didn't have the time to get the PS1 through 3 backwards working. His quote was, "We keep in mind that engineering specialized for the PS5 as we produce the device. In the midst of that, the PS4 already has 100 million players. We thought that they ought to want to play their PS4 titles on their PS5s as well. Indeed, include the compatibility with the PS4. So obviously they talk about how they haven't been able to reach the implication of getting the PlayStation 1, 2, and 3 games on PS5. And this is something we've known for a while. Ubisoft kind of let that stuff leak. They have not been talking about it at all. So it's not too shocking. It's good to see it kind of get out the way now. That way it's not a big blow at launch when people are trying to shove, SSX for PlayStation 3 in their PS5 and it's not working. Whatever it have you be. You play your PS4 games, play your PS5 games. That's what it's gonna do. Now, it's not gonna necessarily mean never. It doesn't mean that they're not working on a thing. This PlayStation Plus collection thing may be a workaround, and a lot of there's different things they can look at. They can look at what Xbox does with Game Pass and emulation and download codes. They can look at what Nintendo's done with like service with their NES collection thing and SNES collection thing. Just don't give us FIFA 12 and stuff like that.
Yikes.
It'll be good. It'll be good, but we'll see really what it takes. Launching a new hardware is hard enough. And on top of people being like, I want to play my PS2 games, all right? I want to play it. I want to play Jak and Daxter Lost Frontier on PS2 on my PS5. And it just doesn't work that well. He also said that Sony will have more PlayStation 5 units ready for sale than they had at PlayStation 4 units in 2013 at launch. He says they will have more PS5s available at launch than PS4s available at launch, which is bold for you to say that, especially considering what we just witnessed with the whole debacle.
Sure didn't look like it.
But sure doesn't look like it. No one believed this, but they do have a lot can happen in 8 weeks. For all we know, the system could still, I doubt it, but get delayed and stuff like that. So it was good to get some of this information out. It's good to just have it there and not be so hidden with it, which is a big Nintendo move, is to hide information like that. So obviously they're prepping the console to be strong. You're going to have your PS4 titles there. Who knows what it looks like down the line. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to finally hear an official statement from someone at Sony about the whole backwards compatibility thing. I don't mean to give out false hope or anything like that, but it was good to hear that the main reason why there isn't backwards compatibility seems to be more prioritization and time constraints, and less so a disinterest in doing that. So that's good that they're not saying that, like the answer we've got in the past where it's like, nobody cares about backwards compatibility. That's what we got in the past. It's good that they're just saying at least now that we didn't have the time. So that means that at some point they might get to it. That might be something that they're interested in, or at least offering some kind of PlayStation Now version of that, where maybe you could stream backward, older games and stuff like that. That's an option, at least from the first party. So it's good to hear, and I'm glad that they're at least trying to have a lot of PS5s available with the whole COVID straining the production pipeline thing. I don't necessarily know how they'd pull that off. But hey, if they say they can do it, they can do it. I mean, I'm not working in the warehouse, so I can't tell you whether their words are correct or wrong, but it's a bold statement, and I hope they can fulfill it. And again, once it's launched and it's out there and they're trying to get into the stores, it could be an entirely different situation where people are not having the hardest time getting it. But again, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so things are going to be weird. There's going to be people going things. I don't know how open GameStops are going to be come this fall and stuff like that. So we'll see. And I'm just glad that we were able to get our pre-order so I can get out of the way and allow y'all to fight over that. So
yeah. If we're not at the stores and online, well, we don't go to stores, but if we're not online trying to snag these things, it's good that someone else will be able to. And then at least they're trying. PlayStation's like, we're going to try. We're going to, they said definitively they're going to have them, but at least it's good news. It's not like, hey, we're going to do our best.
And I feel bad because I think about this upcoming Tuesday when Xbox is going on, and there's I don't have that same level of anxiety because I really don't see the same level of demand for the Xbox. So I'm like, well, it shouldn't be too hard for me to get one of those, but who knows? Things can get weird. Yeah,
I think it's gonna be more of an issue of just the site's not working than it is not getting through the checkout, because I don't know. It's my feeling that I'll be able to do that kind of on my phone without it really much issue.
That should be okay. Yeah.
I think it's just going to be more of an issue just that. By the time I get home, if I haven't pre-ordered my Xbox, I think maybe I'll be able to just jump in, do it from a website and be okay. I think more it's just how stable, because I think some of the places are going 8 a.m. How stable is that going to be at 8 a.m. when everyone's jumping?
It also is worth mentioning, I have changed my mind and have decided to get the Series X.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
I have also said that.
Yeah, I was gonna get the Series S for a long time, but then I thought about it, and Alyssa brought up some stuff, my girlfriend, and I was like, you know what? It is a good way to just future-proof my collection, because yes, I understand it's easy at launch to be like, yeah, but there's 4K doesn't matter that much. But by the end, it would be nice to have the most powerful things available to me. Not to mention, I saved an extra $100 I wasn't anticipating on saving with the PlayStation 5, with the fact that I got the digital version.
Oh, that works out in your favor. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wasn't anticipating getting the digital only version. I ended up with that. That's $100 less that I'm spending. So I could allocate that towards, my Xbox purchase and not, again, it's all going to eviscerate my credit card. But I mean, I'll be able to at least use it for years and get high fidelity experiences for years, as opposed to getting the Xbox Series S and then in a couple years when they start releasing stuff that really take advantage of the visuals, I'm kind of sitting there like, dang. So I just don't want to have any regrets. And that thing, the longer I look at it and the more I see like the Tower of Mordor, I'm like, I kind of want that.
Are you gonna stand it up or lay it on your side?
It all depends on my setup. Like I'm assuming I'm keeping the setup I have right now, and I don't have anything standing up in there right now, so I don't know if I could fix it. And the only way I could have the space to stand it up, I would imagine, would be to put it on my little tower that I have. But that's scary as hell. I'm scared to stand anything up on there.
Yeah, man, you got 2 cats running around.
Yeah, it would be super bold to do that. I'm assuming I'm going to lay it down on my side just to avoid the possibility of knocking that over. But if I can fit it and have proper ventilation, I'm for sure standing it up. But I doubt I will be able to have the space for it.
All right.
So I guess we can move into a rather quick story. It's not a big thing that I have a whole bunch of thoughts on, but it's something I at least wanted to mention because one of the big 3 had a conference too. Guys, hey, don't forget about Nintendo. They did something too. They had a little mini partner direct, and here are the announcements. We got Monster Hunter Rise, Monster Hunter Stories 2, Wings of Ruin, Ori and the Will of the Wisp, that was super popular on Xbox. That's coming out on Switch. Well, no, it's actually out on Switch now. We get Fitness Boxing 2, Rhythm and Exercise. I felt like it was 2006 again. I never want to see anything like that in my life again. Disgaea 6, Defiance of Destiny, if you're interested in doing 2 billion hit points of damage. Balan Wonderworld, which is the most interesting thing I saw there that literally no one has mentioned online. But it's interesting because it's by the Sonic creator and the Nights into Dreams creator. So that's really interesting. Mm-hmm. We get Rune Factory 5, The Long Dark, Hades, Empire of Sin, and Sniper Elite 4. So, Steve, any of these interest you at all?
So it's cool to see Monster Hunter Rise. I'm not really into the Monster Hunter stories. That's more of a mini thing. It's Monster Hunter Rise looks kind of cool because it looks a little bit more action, platforming, kind of like sped up story based. Yep. So that's kind of interesting. I'm really into Monster Hunter World, so I don't know if that'll translate to Switch. Ori and the Will of the Wisp is interesting because Xbox said that was never coming to Switch. They said no more Xbox games coming to Switch. We all knew they were full of it because here it is on Switch immediately. I haven't finished the first Ori, so I still haven't even cared to jump into Ori 2.
Man.
So, Fitness Boxing 2. When I worked at GameStop, this game was super popular for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. I don't know what to tell you. Why I don't know what to say about it. It's there if you want it.
It's the Wii coming back from the dead.
So it's there. Disgaea 6. I have a weird relationship with Disgaea where I jump into random ones. They're not connected at all. So I jump into like 3, and then I jumped into 5, and then I play a lot of the demos because usually that grid-based stuff is a little bit slower, and they don't really help. They don't really like catch up with the days. They try to keep it old school, so that's cool. Probably will not
on PSP.
Yeah, so we'll see what Disgaea 6 holds. Balan Wonderland, I'm super excited for just because I love to support Sega, and creator of Sonic, Billy Hatcher, and Knights, and all that stuff is really on it. I don't know why this game looks bad. I don't.
Old, right?
It looks very old, so I almost texted you when I was watching the news because I was like, "Yo, the game does look old." They did show
really,
this,
like it looks like a 3DS game, kind of.
Yeah. So there's something weird with. Don't know if it's just it was being made for something else, then it's being ported, or they're showing old builds, whatever it may be. It looks interesting. I don't know where I will play this. Probably on Switch because I don't want the trophies on my account. But who knows?
That's so big.
Rune Factory. Who knows? Maybe if it's good, then I'll get it on PlayStation. I'll platinum it. Yeah. Rune Factory 5 is okay. The Long Dark is okay. Hades. Everybody go buy Hades. I don't know.
Looks awesome.
I played. Oh, it's so good. I play it on because it's been stuck on PC forever now, and it's always obviously they said it's coming to other systems. It's still not on PlayStation from my understand. It's still not on Xbox. It's been only on PC. It's been in this sort of early access beta thing for like 4 years. They released like 4 downloadable packs for it. Go buy Hades. If you haven't bought Hades, I will send you $20 or whatever they charge on eShop because Hades is so good. The characters, the voicing, I completely. Now it is a kind of a roguelike thing where you're gonna die, you gotta get stronger, you go back and stuff like that. But artistically, obviously, these are the guys who did Bastion and Transistor.
Yeah.
What was the other one? So I love to support them. Hades is so good. Go watch a couple reviews. You will love it. Everyone out there, go buy Hades. It's so good. I'm so happy. I have not got it on Switch yet, just because I do have it on PC. And they said they were going to do the PC save could work to your Switch, and that's not available yet.
Good.
So the cross save will be coming. They said we couldn't get it working at launch yet, but we didn't want to hold the game up for that, which I super commend them, because at least the game is out. I believe the game is out now. I can't remember if I want to say it was out immediately. Empire Sim and Sniper Elite 4. Sniper Elite somehow keep getting made and sold, and it's cool to see that being brought to Switch. Somebody's buying them. We got a lot of them when I used to work at GameStop. We get like 20 a pack at a time. Don't know why, but that's cool, because more games on Switch that isn't just shovelware and isn't that weird lumberjack game that's always on sale for 50 cents. As long as it's not that, it's cool. So more games on Switch, the better. So Nintendo's still with these random directs where they will tweet 2 hours before that the direct is coming. So that's cool, but some of these games are some big hitters and some interesting ones. So
yeah, there's some good stuff there.
I was excited for some of this stuff. I did not watch the direct. I kind of just watched a rundown. I was super excited for some of this stuff. So interesting stuff. So small rumor that luckily has already been kind of debunked and stuff like that, but we wanted to bring it up because we gotta talk about Xbox every once in a while too. So a rumor first emerged in GamesBeat podcast that Microsoft was in talks with Bungie to acquire the team, but negotiations fell through upon the realization of how much Bungie was looking for to be bought out. Now, to remember, Bungie was in bed. I don't know if they were owned, but they were super in bed, obviously, with Microsoft for the Halo games.
Yes.
Halo 1 all the way through Halo Reach. So it would have been super weird for them to go back to that. But, Bungie CEO Pete Parsons responded to the tweet reporting that the rumor flat out was false. So they said, "This is false. All of the info and speculation out there is not true. We are lucky to have a great relationship with many of your friends over there who play Destiny, and Halo will always have a special place in our hearts." So obviously the rumor was kind of getting traction, which is why I was glad that they quickly came out. Depending on, if they stayed silent, that's when people are like, well, it may be true. That's like the Sony way to do it. When they quickly came out, they're like, listen, no. We're just not. We work with Microsoft. Obviously, Destiny's still there, and all these other games are there. I did not believe this at one bit, because it would have been super weird for them to have. It would have looked bad to leave Microsoft, that partnership, go to Activision, which was a mistake in the first place, to then kind of go back with your tail between your legs, especially with Destiny being on a sort of revival. It would have been really weird for them to have to go back to Microsoft to be purchased, and then still support Destiny on the other consoles and stuff like that. I was taken by how much traction people were believing in this rumor, but what do you think? Because I know you're not big into Destiny.
Yeah, no. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Bungie, and so when I heard this whole story, I felt like and ultimately what I thought seemed to have come out when they kind of cleared things up, which is it's just dialogue. Dialogue happens between these companies all the time. But yeah, Bungie going back to Microsoft, it's kind of like you have to ask, like, for what? And again, like, the position that they had, Microsoft filled eventually. Now, obviously, people argue about the quality of the whole 343 subbing in as the Halo developer thing, but they kind of have that space filled. So it's like, I don't understand why Bungie would go back for, like, what, redundancy? Not to mention they left for a reason. And the same issues that they would bumped into then, they're probably going to bump into again. I feel like they just got out of their whole relationship where having this monolith telling them what to do above them has Activision. I doubt that they're really thirsty to jump into having anybody be their bosses again. They're a big team, a lot of money going out of there. They own the rights to Destiny in totality, which means that they're getting I would imagine the royalties and profit splits are not massive going forward at that point. So I would imagine they could, for the most part, fund their own publishing at this point. So I don't think they need to go back to Microsoft at all. Not now, because the Bungie that left Microsoft years ago and the Bungie who left Activision and the Bungie that exists now are completely different entities, and things change. And Destiny, they're working hard on, and they've in many ways kind of turned things around a little bit, and not completely. Again, the Destiny isn't what it was at one point, but they're doing a good job. They have a quality product over there, and them going back to Microsoft would be kind of silly at this point.
Yeah, it made no sense really. Again, they're probably maybe they're talking about some exclusive content or exclusive feature event or something like that.
Yeah, there's lots of reasons.
Yeah, it's marketing, and obviously.
So I guess we can move on to the final part of the show if you want. The loose topic. So this is actually a story that broke, but we're going to convert it into a loose topic, which is Nintendo has officially ended production of the Nintendo 3DS family of systems after about 10 years. The console was released back in 2011, sold over 75 million units. So we're going to kind of do a retrospective and look back at all these years that the 3DS has been around. Now, obviously, the 3DS launch was not the easiest thing in the world. They launched at a certain price point with a certain lineup, didn't resonate too well. They dropped the price shortly after to not the best reception, and obviously that's when they kind of launched the ambassador program as kind of like a sorry about that to the early adopters of the console. So I mean, at the time it wasn't looking great for them, and not to mention about a little bit after, a couple months, about a year after, PlayStation comes out with the Vita, this powerhouse of a machine that at the time, in comparison, the 3DS was not even coming close to in power. So, I mean, things were looking a little dark coming off of the fact that the DS was this insanely popular handheld device. The fact that its 3D sequel was not hitting the right. In 2012, the Wii U came out and flopped. Nintendo was in a weird place, but they stuck by it. They had incredible Pokemon games, Animal Crossing, Metroid, you keep naming it. And so ultimately, after all those years passed, the IP won out, quality games won, and I mean the 3DS ended up moving 75 million units, which is not their best selling handheld, but nothing to snuff your nose at. And ultimately, I mean, kind of look at the shape of the Vita. So who would have thought that all those years later they would have turned it around so much? And I was very critical of the 3DS for a long time when it came out, but ultimately once I got my copy, I love the Mario Kart game was on it. I really developed quite the love for the 3DS. So what's your relationship with the 3DS?
So, I was always back and forth. Obviously, so when it came out, I wanted to purchase it, but I was not going to spend $250 on what I thought was another reiteration of the DS. I didn't understand this was like its own system. Very much the way I thought it was like DSi, where it's like you guys just can't keep adding letters to it, and I thought the 2-camera thing on the back was dumb, and I was like, I don't get it. So when they did do that price reduction, when it dropped like $170, I want to say it was like under $200. Walmart actually had it on that new price sale early, so I bought it. I qualified for like the ambassador program, which was sadly the only way you ever got SNES games on the 3DS. They never put that virtual console out on there. For some reason they only locked it behind. So, never understood that. So Nintendo did weird things. But that launch lineup was very scarce. They had Star Fox 3D, and then later they had, I want to say they had Ocarina 3D remake was close to launch, if not at launch, and it was fine. I remember playing those two games for a little bit. It sat on my shelf for a long time, and I almost forgot I had it for a while, just because the titles weren't there. I've always had an issue with like how the circle pad was cool, but like the buttons were super small and things like that, and all these AR games were not gonna do it. But obviously after some time, the games started coming out, when you started getting the Pokemon games and you started getting all these other things coming out, and I'm like, okay. And I even took some time to go back and play some old DS games that I haven't played in a while, and it's like, the system has something. Then you go into thinking, the Pokemon games that came out, the Animal Crossing, which was the first Animal Crossing I was able to get like at launch and play tons of, because I didn't have a GameCube, I didn't have a Wii for way later, and I played some DS. I played some of the DS one, but not at launch. So to have that there, cool. It was so awesome to have, and it's interesting to see that like after so much time, like I was under the impression like these systems were already out of production, but because of all the iterations and stuff like that. But it's always sad to see a console kind of go away. Even though I've kind of said goodbye to my DS a while, every once in a while I'll break it out for something small. But if you think about these legendary games that it started getting, like even, excluding the remake, because we ended up getting Majora's Mask, which is one of my favorite Zelda games. We got that remade in 3DS. We got then Luigi's Mansion. The first one was remade for 3DS. We got the sequel to Luigi's Mansion after all this time, yep. Dark Moon on 3DS, and all these other games that started coming out. That's where I fell in love with Fire Emblem, was on a 3DS.
Awakening,
really and then I played the Birthright version. So then Awakening, then Birthright was super popular into me, which led me into liking that stuff. To the impossible, and they got a Smash Brothers game running on there.
Insane.
To a mixed result, unfortunately, because of the 3DS, that one held back the Wii U version. But
hey, it was they got it working though generally.
But they generally got it working. Yeah. The characters were there. I was playing tons of it. Now again, Smash 4 was a weird situation, but it's interesting to see them really stick by it, and to see the opposite when you have to compare a little bit to the Vita, where Sony was quickly to be like, well, if y'all don't want it, we're not going to make games for it. So we never got the BioShock game that was in works for Vita. We never got, all these other ones. The Infamous game for Vita was never released, and all these other games were never released. Where Nintendo's like, we're sticking by it. We're going to keep cranking out the good titles. They could have easily been like, let's shut down and we move these games to, I guess, Wii U. They had no option. But they stuck by it, and we've for a long time. It's been 3 years now since we really got the last swan song, which to me, is my understanding, is Metroid: Samus Returns.
Yeah, that was it for me. I don't know if they came out with anything after that point.
Yeah, the remake, and I'm like, well, that was really the swan song because the Switch was really popping at the time. So it's like, it's interesting to look back at it and be like, it's interesting. It's like, wow, it's a system that people thought was going to fail. The games were $40-$50 at the time. Mobile gaming on iPads everybody was playing Angry Birds and all these other dumb games on there, and people kind of thought mobile gaming was dead. And here's, two of the biggest guys, Sony and obviously Nintendo, who's thrived in the handheld market, really stick by their guns and believe it, because without that, we wouldn't have the Switch nowadays, where we're playing Galaxy, Sunshine, and 64 handheld for most of the time. Like, you gotta give 3DS its props for that. Like, I've not played my 3DS in a while. I have it somewhere up here, and I have two, I believe, because I have my maroon one somewhere for the new 3DS.
Beautiful one.
Yeah, so I have that somewhere, but then I have my new 3DS X. Well, I don't know what I have up here now. It's Pikachu. It's got a Pikachu on it. But now might play some of these older games on it and stuff like that. So it's always gonna hold a place in my heart, in my gaming history. Is like, though I had a lot of problems with the way it was and the lack of power and the stuff like that, but it also succeeded in the ways that I had to charge it every couple of days. That was it, because the battery lasted long.
Yeah.
Play Switch for 10 minutes. I mean, play Switch for half an hour and your battery's down.
Dead.
So from hardware to software, it was really like interesting. It was really Nintendo standing by. We can make games for this hardware, our hardware, despite it not being the powerhouse that was the Vita at the time, that was iPads and iPhones and iTouches. So it's a system I sometimes miss, and every once in a while I do break it out and I'll play an older game. Sometimes I do play like Brain Age on it sometimes, because it's like,
Brain Age.
What a throwback. And it's like, I miss the simpler times, especially what it represents to me. So that's my relationship with it. I hated it at the beginning. I had big buyer's remorse, but quickly I regained my confidence in Nintendo, and these games started coming out, and I was having a great time. And that's really what Nintendo's always sticking by, is we want games that you're having fun with. Sure, it wasn't the tear jerkers and artwork and masterpieces we were getting on PS3, PS4, and Xbox at the time, but they were fun games. They were games that I was having fun. It was making me smile, making me laugh at how dumb certain things were. And that's what it needed to be for me, and that's what it ended up being for me.
Yeah, and I feel like the biggest lesson we could take away from the 3DS is something that I feel like Nintendo's taught us many times, which is hardware and power are important, and that's good and all, but ultimately the quality of experiences, the fun you have, and just sticking by quality IP are ultimately going to triumph one way or another. And for all reasons on paper, the Vita would have decimated the 3DS it was a powerhouse. You get to play Uncharted on the go. And how did that play out? Because ultimately, Mario's going to Mario. One way or another. Zelda's going to Zelda. Metroid's going to Metroid. These are different types of IP. And they stuck by it. They didn't give up. Their whole, we're kind of over this. We're getting out of the handheld market. We're just going to focus on our home console. That's not really something Nintendo does. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to double down and we're going to make this work. And yeah, we kind of botched the launch, but we're going to stick the landing. And ultimately they did. And Nintendo's shown us that time and time again. We're like, did they have the strongest console in the market? Hell no. But are they holding their own? Yeah, for sure. And I mean, they've done it with the GameCube. They're doing it with the Switch right now. Like, we've seen them do this before, and it's really, really impressive. And I feel like 3DS, a lot of the rocky start that it had is going to be so dwarfed in its legacy of what it was able to accomplish in the years afterwards that, you know, going down in history, people are not going to really remember it that negatively at all. They're not going to remember the ambassador program and stuff like that. No, they're going to remember the absolute classic games that we got. I mean, to this day, some franchises hit their peak there. There's a lot of arguments to be made that the best Animal Crossing's on 3DS right now. Mm-hmm. And that's a crazy statement to make, but like right now, in terms of like, does it have the best graphics in the world? No, but content. The content is there. The fun experiences are there. They found a way to integrate, you know, touch and strange diorama style 3D. They're a weird company, but sometimes when they hit right. And I got to give the 3DS a lot of credit because, again, I was very critical of it when it came out. I was like, I don't want to play 3D Metal Gear Solid and 3D Street Fighter. But when Nintendo came out and they had handheld versions of some of their best franchises and at a really high quality, I mean, I had to give them credit. I was like, no, nobody else is doing this like this. And and they got the price right too eventually, and they kept iterating on it for years and years and years. I mean, longer than I thought they would have. So shout out to Nintendo, shout out to 3DS. We will miss you, RIP. But we got the Switch now, so not that RIP. We don't really care that much. But yeah, man, what a show. It's passing the 2-hour mark. This might have been our longest, actually.
We just hit the 2-hour mark. Yeah, I'm going to have fun separating this one topic by topic.
Good luck, and good luck to me rendering this one. This is going to be fun. It's going to be the rest of my Sunday. So,
but it was a big week, man. That PlayStation stuff was such big news where...
Finally. I told you, we're eventually going to get the information.
Yeah, if it wasn't Wednesday, any other day, we probably would have done our own, even, like, episode on it.
Dedicated,
But, you know, Wednesday, we only had a couple of days and we didn't know what was going on. Also, we were trying to get our pre-orders in, so that's where our attention was.
And come November, we're going to have a dedicated Series X and S talk and a dedicated PS5 talk for their own podcast. So those are going to be long as hell, too, I can imagine. When we have our hands on the consoles,
when we can unbox and talk about our first impressions with the system physically. I mean, we still have some other news. I mean, we haven't seen what the UI looks like on, well, Xbox is just going to be the Microsoft stuff, but PlayStation has not shown us the UI. It has not seen.
We don't know the Series X launch lineup at all. If there's going to be one, I don't know
what this looks like running. So we're in exciting times. Who knows what else is just? We're right at the cusp of like all this stuff starting to come out, and it's so exciting.
Yep, so we got a brand new episode coming to you guys next Monday, additional to a news episode that's going to go up next Saturday. So if you want to hear the biggest stories broken down, we got lots of content for you guys. Don't forget, we also break down the podcast subject by subject that goes out throughout the week. So keep your eyes out for that if that's the format that you'd like to take in the podcast. So I'm Jabril, and I am with
Steve. Hope you guys enjoyed.
And that's the NeoVintage podcast. See you guys.
Take care.